I'm attorney Karen Jimeno with former presidential spokesperson Edwin Lacerda. And this is SONA 2024, the nation's agenda, the Bilyonaryo News Channel special coverage. It's midway in his 6-year term as president of the country. In a couple of hours from now, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will deliver his third State of the Nation address, detailing his government's priority agenda for the nation.
Senate President Francis Escudero expects an honest speech from the President, while House Speaker Martin Romualdez vows swift action from the House of Representatives on the legislative priorities of today's SONA.
What are we expecting from President Marcos's third SONA? And how will he be presenting the true State of the Nation? This morning, the Senate and the House of Representatives officially opened the third regular session of the 19th Congress, respectively. In his opening speech, Senate President Francis Escudero says his leadership will prioritize legislation that will avoid needless political bickerings, beginning with charter change. However, Escudero later clarified that this doesn't mean the Senate is closing its door on the proposed amendments to the Constitution. Escudero also stressed in his speech that the Senate will continue to defend the country's sovereignty.
Meanwhile, at the House of Representatives, House Speaker Martin Romualdez promised support to farmers, stabilizing prices of agricultural products, and combating the illegal POGO operations in the country.
Before we get to that, Edwin, first let's check on the situation at the Batasan complex at this hour. Our correspondent Hannah T is there live. Hannah, what's happening there now?
Karen, anticipation is building here at the north wing of the Batasan Pambansa for President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s third State of the Nation address, set to begin at 4 p.m. today. We're expecting around 2,000 attendees, including key political figures and representatives from various sectors, all eager to hear the President's accomplishment updates and future plans. A few moments ago, Speaker Martin Romualdez checked the vicinity of the House of Representatives. We've also seen Bataan 1st District Representative Geraldine Roman. Karen, the north and south wings have been upgraded. Notably, air conditioning units have been installed here. The red carpet has also been rolled out. The government has allocated a 20 million peso budget for SONA 2024, which covers various expenses, including equipment to enhance the program's audiovisual presentation and overall ambience inside the plenary hall and around the Batasan complex. Karen, security is tight inside the Batasan Pambansa. Only those with gate passes and invites are allowed to enter the premises. Attendees are also required to undergo several security checks to ensure the safety of everyone, especially the President and other officials of government. Back to you, Karen.
Thank you, Hannah. Joining us now in the studio to give light on President Marcos's hits and misses in last year's SONA is Edmund Tayao, founding president of Political Economic Elemental Researchers and Strategists, and professor lecturer at the San Beda Graduate School of Law. Good afternoon, Professor Tayao.
Thank you for having me, Attorney Karen and Attorney Lacerda.
And we also have with us another political strategist, the expert Malu Tikia. Good afternoon, Malu.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Edwin. Thanks, Karen. And thank you to Bilyonaryo for having us here.
Thank you for being here today. So perhaps let's go straight to really discussing what are the hits and misses of the President with respect to his last State of the Nation address, the second State of the Nation address.
Okay, let me take that. First of all, I think the President laid down a very long and winding plan for the second State of the Nation address compared to the first, where he focused on economics, on taxes and reforms and where to get the money. The second SONA focused on agriculture, focus on infrastructure. He did something on, mentioned about BBM. I think one of the sound bites that a lot of people were applauding was ang mga araw nyo ibilang na sa mga smugglers. That one was very, very loudly applauded. And then he came up with focusing on energy, which is a problem really in our country, where he talked about the one grid, one market. And then he went into discussing the foreign policy. That foreign policy actually was one of those key points highlighted, where you will see him saying, friend to all and enemy to none. I guess that shaped everyone's point of view in terms of foreign policy. And then he went into discussing BARM, the Bangsa Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, because that is a continuation of the peace process started during the time of President Aquino. And then there was one thing that was inserted, which is the grant of amnesty. Everyone, when the executive order was released, were kind of shocked. Why are you giving amnesty to these people? And then, oh, viola, it's actually part of the second SONA.
Well, one of the important topics also in last year's SONA was food security. And at that time, we had the president being the simultaneous Secretary of Agriculture. Do you think that there was accomplishments that they can speak of now in the third SONA with respect to food security and achievements gained in agriculture?
I think the achievements you would probably lay on the steering and the administrative capacity of the current Secretary Laurel, because at the time, a president and a secretary of one of the key programs of the administration was really challenging for him. We saw a lot of people saying, give up the agri portfolio and focus on being a president. And that he did. I think there was challenge there because when he made a promise for 20 pesos na bigas, everyone was, hanging on to that promise made during the campaign season, and he wasn't able to deliver that when he was the incumbent secretary.
Professor, sorry, go ahead.
Edwin, I was going to ask you, last year the president boasted of the highest economic growth in 46 years. Given what Malu said about food security and the sub-question is, do you think food security is achievable, and do you think the president can exceed the GDP growth for the remainder of his term?
Well, as far as food security is concerned, we've always been trying toward that direction. No? But I'm not sure whether the numbers now could suggest, a steady growth. No? But surprisingly, when we did the national focus group discussion, and all the agencies, it's surprising that it's the Department of Agriculture that's one of the popular agencies, without them knowing exactly who is the head of the agency. Now, the traditional popular agencies, of course, would be the SWD, DepEd, DILG, but I was quite surprised that agriculture was one of those listed by respondents to be a popular agency. So let's see how it plays out with the report of the president. What I'm waiting really, other than this rather very the popular issues, like West Philippine Sea and food security and so on, is the promise in the last SONA, that the devolution would really be further, that the DILG will come up with a program assisting LGUs that, quote unquote, are not yet ready to accept more responsibilities. This initiative on climate change was also mentioned in the previous SONA, and so far I'm not pretty sure whether this has been quite covered by the media, and whether there were some pronouncements toward that particular end.
Professor Ed, since you mentioned the West Philippine Sea, I seem to recall in the second State of the Nation address, the president made a strong statement that we will not give up any inch of our territory. Do you think that this is something that he has been able to fulfill?
I think there was recalibration of the way we approach it. Before, there was not much revelation or coverage as to what China really is doing as far as that issue is concerned. But now, to my mind, it's one of those that China has been acting up, no? Before they could literally do anything and everything that they want to do in the area. But now, lahat naka-report, no? So I'm inclined to think that the approach has been working well in the sense that before we haven't been hearing categorical statements of support from other countries, no? Now we've heard France and a host of other countries other than the traditional partners like Australia and Japan.
Let me ask Maluhurans, also a polling firm, in respect of the South China Sea issue, West Philippine Sea issue. It seems like there is a great traction and approval from the Filipino people in the President's approach to West Philippine Sea. However, it did not seem to appear on his approval rating.
That's right.
What would you account for that?
Well, I guess the problem really there is communicating where you are in terms of the West Philippine Sea. But last night, I was so very happy with the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Undersecretary who is dealing with the 9th negotiation. That track is moving, and there is already agreement. I was surprised that they dropped the word West Philippine Sea in their communication, and they started carrying South China Sea. And in that, which was tweeted last night, and in that, it opened the possibility of collaborating on the resupply. And my sense is that is good because I certainly do not want to go into war. Our country is not prepared for that. And I'm happy that diplomacy is gaining more traction, less of the assertive transparency that is going on. I am very, very happy with that development, considering that our neighbors, the ASEAN, the group of countries in ASEAN, are really very much not in favor of having that problem in our backyard. So that one is a tick for this administration, since it came in towards the wee hours of the preparation of the SONA. I understand that there was a change in the final draft to reflect this new development between the Philippines and China. And mind you, Edwin, ikaw alam mo ito, it was essentially the DFA, and it was diplomacy that worked.
The South China Sea, 30% of the world's trade passes through the South China Sea, and therefore that's nice to hear that it's like one step backward, two steps forward. We give in to the name of West Philippine Sea. I remember because it was during our time that
That's
the DFA recommended, let's use West Philippine Sea.
That's right.
But going back now, since you two are political experts, I was wondering, how can this administration further improve the President's approval rating, considering it appears that approval ratings are mostly centered towards kitchen table issues or gut issues. Has the President addressed the gut issues that confront that everyday Filipino? Because malayo sa bituka ang South Philippines,
Has he
South China
addressed?
Sea. Yes.
Actually, malapit. Dahil
I
sa
was
mga
gonna say, with the
mangingisda.
fishermen, yeah,
Diba?
yes,
Oo.
yeah.
Pero, is it an element into the approval rating? Right now, foreign policy is not.
Correct.
It's still domestic issues,
That's correct.
inflation, job, wages, the economy itself, the dollar, the peso-dollar rate. But in terms of really gaining the foreign policy as part of his arsenal, I think he needs to communicate it in such a way that we need to settle this. We do not want to go to war, but we settle it, make a win-win scenario out of those conflicting concerns. I think that will show the kind of leadership he will probably be gaining once you really say walang kaibigan, di ba? Walang kalaban, Pilipinas na interest. Kailangan yon lumabas sa kanya.
I will also push for better communications, now, starting with better communications with the agencies actually involved, no, in the issue of the West Philippine Sea, precisely because nakita natin, no, minsan sila mismo nagko-contradict with each other. Pangalawa, yung communication dapat maikabit talaga yung gut issues no? Kasi tama nga doon sa nasabi ni Malu kanina na when we speak of foreign relations, it's not something that's easily understood by the people. And so the tendency is to focus on what they actually feel and experience every day, no? Third, ako kasi when it comes to the issue of the West Philippine Sea, it's more a security issue. No, if I was with the government, I would focus on it being a security issue, and wag na natin patulad yung mga ingay na ginagawang partisan issue no. But at the end of the day, of course, however it was approached no by different groups. Either before or now, no, it will appear anyway.
So you both think that for sure the West Philippine Sea issue is something that will be mentioned in the SONA today?
Yeah, definitely. Especially with the DFA communique that was made last night. I think that will be front and center. I differ with Ed in terms of it being just a security. I think it is an economic issue. Katulad ng sinabi ni Edwin, it's a passageway for all. I mean, the reason why the Philippines has a very important geographic advantage is because of our location. And certainly with having some quiet times with China, we can probably develop the resources. There's talk about the blue economy being pushed and really exploring the depths of the water and what mineral resources we can get that. Imagine, Karen, if we are able to extract those resources with China on one hand, the US on the other hand, UK on in Recto Bank. These things, the Philippines can benefit from it. Let's look at a win-win scenario where the Philippines is not treated like a second-class citizen in its own backyard and still benefit from that arbitral ruling and benefit from the economic activities that we can have.
Oh, those are good points, Malu. I'm curious to hear in this SONA if the President will have that kind of approach, not just more of like a strong stance that it's about protecting our sovereignty, but also finding practical solutions when it comes to having economic benefits from that region through cooperation, bilateral agreements, and perhaps joint exploration.
Siguro singit ko lang kay Ed, no? Ang sinabi niya na yung paano itataas yung approval rating. Tataas yung approval rating kung isasangguni mo sa bayan ang paglalagay ng EDCA, ang paglalagay ng positioning of all these armaments, to a certain degree, to a large degree, not just a certain degree, to a large degree, accountability and transparency is needed by this administration. Because at the end of the day, imagine mo, Ilocos, naka-preposition doon. Ay sino unang susugudin? Kaya pag nag-survey ka, lumalabas doon sa North Central Luzon, medyo lumiliit yung base niya. Kasi naa-alarm ang mga tao dahil walang pagsangguni.
Let's talk about, we've talked about the South China Sea, West Philippine Sea, and you mentioned social services like DSWD. Do you think our social services have improved? Because that's part of the gut issues that we have a huge segment which is still under the poverty line level. So how do you feel the government has approached the fight against poverty?
Actually, yun yung isisingit ko kanina, no? Kasi much as we'd like to focus on, itong clear and present, what's this threat to us, no? The West Philippine Sea. Dapat we have to have a full circle approach to it. Because even if we say that, we should continue negotiating and working with the other countries, including China for that matter, ang tanong dito, naghanap na ba tayo ng ibang alternatives, no? Kasi pagka tinignan mo, for example, the interagency would always flag nakailang complaint na tayo na final. Hindi naman tayo pinapansin no? Why? Because it also is connected to trade relations, and as Malu pointed out, it's economic. But much as we'd like to continue working with China in this regard, kontrolado tayo masyado kasi lahat ng kailangan natin, doon natin binibili, no? But meanwhile, we have also other countries that we can consider, no, as alternative trading partners. Asa na tayo doon? No? Papasok din dito yung domestic approach, like as you've mentioned, no? How are the agencies, no, given the mandate, no, to alleviate, no, people's limitations actually working? I'm inclined to think that DSWD has been quite aggressive, no, in this regard. Pero yun na nga, paano mo i-tie up doon sa mas sustainable na approach? Masusustain mo yan kung matatie up mo with other agencies like the local government units. And when you try to look at it, ang daming mga, ang tawag dito, hindi siya tuloy-tuloy, no? Maraming gaps, so to speak. So, hopefully, there is a strategy on the part of the government to put this all together. And, well, the results can be dramatic in that regard. Let me comment also on the drop in the approval ratings. Now, if I saw the surveys, and the margin of error is 4% for the whole country and 2% in Metro Manila. Pag tinignan mo, 5% ang binagsak ng presidente, plus or minus yan. I'm not saying that it's not...
Hindi significant. What you're saying is not significant.
What I'm saying is it's expected. During the midterm, nandyan naman nag-hover between 40 to 50% ang approval rating. Nonetheless, hindi naman tama na pabayaan mo lang na mag-stay na lang yan dyan at bumaba. No? So, in other words, again, at the end of the day, it's proper and more effective communications. That's one thing as far as the administration is concerned.
But the president has been going around the country. He's been awarding land to CLOAs, to farmer beneficiaries. He's been doing a lot of, maybe that's part also of the communications approach of the president. And we've seen that more significantly towards this second quarter. Yeah. So that's something maybe,
Edwin,
is that an effective way of communicating?
He has been in almost all the provinces in Mindanao, and the ratings show he lost a lot in terms of approval and trust in Mindanao.
Would you subscribe that to the row between their family and the Duterte family?
Could be, but it's also a fact that ayuda is non-sustainable. It is just good for the short term. I mean, we have 5 types of ayudas. The total is 500 billion. You can readily give universal basic income to all those who are poor.
So we're not in UBI.
We're not in UBI. And then we have the problem, President Aquino institutionalized the 4 Ps. I'm so happy, yes, that the initial secretary, Secretary Tulfo, graduated all these who have accomplished, you know. It's one thing to read the list of those who are, you know, leeches who stay there for quite some time and removing the rights of others. So there's got to be a more scientific and targeted way of distributing ayuda. And if it is just a short term, might as well use the whole money for a longer term solution.
Mm-hmm. Which is why it's necessary to bring in investments and to add to job generation, which brings up, I spoke recently to the executive director of AmCham, American Chamber, and he mentioned to me quite a good number, because he mentioned since the coming in of President Marcos, there has been an increase of their membership to around 162 new members. So that would signal that there's renewed interest by the U.S. in the Philippines. Maybe perhaps, so would that also, but it seems like the foreign investments have not been felt.
Yeah.
And not sustained. Citibank left, no? I understand Union Bank bought so much of what Citibank left, but again, that has not been discussed significantly. What were the reasons, no, that led to Citibank's leaving the country?
Yeah. And something I would like to discuss here would be how much, after all the state visits in several countries, are pledges that were converted into actual investments.
Exactly.
It's
But
actually
before-
23%
23%.
of all the travels.
So I would love to hear more about this and discuss this further. But in the meantime, let's look at the highlights. So now let's take a look back at the highlights of President Marcos's SONA last year.
Let me now report to the people on the successes that we can now lay claim to, and also the challenges that we continue to face. While the global prospects were bleak, our economy posted a 7.6% growth in 2022, our highest growth rate in 46 years. Isa sa mga dahilan ng pagtaas ng presyo ay ang mga smuggler, mga hoarder at mga nagmamanipula ng presyo ng produktong agrikultural. Hinahabol at ihaabla natin sila. Sadyang hindi tama ang kanilang gawain at hindi rin ito tugma sa ating magandang layunin. Pandaraya ang kanilang ginagawa. Napapahamak hindi lamang ang mga magsasaka, kundi tayo rin mga mamimili. Kaya hindi natin papayagan ang ganitong kalakaran. Bilang na ang mga araw ng mga smuggler at hoarder na yan. In our investment and business promotions and facilitations. For that, we have not limited ourselves to the local economy, but we have looked to the global economy for partnerships and agreements. Our independent foreign policy, a friend to all and enemy of none, has proven effective. We have formed strategic alliances with our traditional and newfound partners in the international community.
VP Sara is definitely not attending this year's SONA. First time since she and President Marcos assumed office.
After last year's turnover ceremonies in the Department of Education, she's now officially not a member of the President's cabinet.
What happened to the unity slogan of Marcos and Duterte in 2022? Okay, so now we're on that topic. For Malu, yes or no? Was the unity team just for convenience in 2022?
I think the Vice President said on July 9 that the unity
this year.
team, yes, of this year, that the unity team is for 2022 elections only. I think that, June 12, I'm sorry. The joke was it was her independence when she said that. And then on July 19, which is the second year of her oath of office, she decided to resign. So my sense, it's a vice president who was the punching bag of this administration since November of 2022.
Yeah.
And that started with the Confidential Intelligence Fund, which was authorized and granted by the President to the Vice President. But at the end of the day, she was left hanging dry. So when she had to decide, should I accept or not, at the Senate, which she probably recognized it more as a mature body than the House of Representatives, she decided not to accept it. So I guess that was the start. And then she was hoping that the President will be there to save her, to talk sense to the Speaker, considering the Speaker is the first cousin of the President. But there was none. So I guess it was a culmination of all these body punches thrown at her, which made her decide that it's time to go.
Professor Ed, what do you make sense of this? Is it a strategy that works well for the administration, or do you think this might backfire on them?
Well, I don't know if there was any strategy on the part of the administration, no? But as it was already explained, perhaps it was an assessment on the part of the Vice President that it was time for her to leave. But also, as far as quote-unquote alliance is concerned, wala naman tayong tunay na political party. Lahat yan ay personalidad, no? And so, at the end of the day, talagang totoo na yung unity team pang-election lang. Kasi masyadong simplistic yung idea natin ng political party. In fact, even if we review the laws, it says there simply it's a campaign mechanism. No? So it will always be an excuse. Meanwhile, in terms of alliance pushing for policies, no? Definitely it is something to look for. And the result of the coming midterm election will either spell disaster or spell more opportunities on the part of the administration.
So for both you, Malu and Ed, how do you think this political realignment will affect the implementation of the next few years of the administration?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it will have a tremendous impact. Imagine if the unity persisted to this day. Imagine if both the institutions of the Office of the President and the Office of the Vice President were working together and helping each other throughout. It's a very unique position, which I thought would be carried in governance. Having said that, I think the midterm will really be crucial for this administration to produce the needed numbers in the Senate if they want to pursue certain reforms that they want. For the Vice President, I think she is reflecting on her position, whether she will lead the opposition, which I doubt, and a lot of people are saying she will. I think she is ready to be a fiscalizer. I think today, as the President makes his State of the Nation address, I think she will listen closely and take note of things that she can work with him and things that are non-negotiable for her.
When you say work with him, do you think that there's still an opportunity for her to support the administration?
Not support the administration. I think the personal relationship between the Vice President and the President is still there. But that is clouded by so many people around him that is causing a lot of problems in terms of them having a one-on-one discussion.
In terms of strategy, dapat makita ng administration, I think, if the surveys can be relied on, the expected outcome of the midterm election is that you will no longer be dealing with political parties, you will be dealing with families. This is the first time that you're expecting same family names running simultaneously. Dati naghahalinhinan lang yan ngayon sabay-sabay na. So in other words, in terms of negotiations, perhaps that is something that administration can look forward to. It can be both an advantage and a disadvantage, in terms of working out the way to pursue the policies. Now, with respect to the Vice President, I'm inclined to think magkaiba ng personalidad yung tatay at anak to my mind, the way I've seen the Vice President, she's been she's more objective, so to speak. So if she will be a critic of the President, I'm expecting her to be more constructive a critic, hindi yung katulad lang nung ibang mga kritiko na may masabi lang, mag-criticize na. So if that is the trajectory that the Vice President is going to follow, maintain niya yung what's this, the approval rating from the people, considering that it's a unique unique characteristic of a politico in her persona.
Thank you so much for your insights, Malu Tiquilla and Professor Ed Tayao. Very happy to have you here in our studio. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Apart from being an event of the state, SONA also somewhat became a fashion show for lawmakers and their spouses or family members attending with them. Live from the Batasan Complex red carpet is Marie Lozano. Marie, who have you seen arrive so far and what are they wearing?
Hi, Attorney Karen. The question is, who are you wearing? I don't have a monitor right now, but that's the question I'm asking everyone here. So who are you wearing today?
Asking me, Marie?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm asking you because
I'm
that's
actually,
the question I'm
so
asking
this is
everyone.
an Inabel
So
by
it's-
Mayumi, and I'm Ilocana, so I wanted something that
Oh.
has my Ilocano heritage.
right? So that is something that I'm asking everyone, and it seems like the response is very meaningful for every single outfit that has passed through this red carpet. I'm actually wearing one that is from Dennis Lustico. I think we interviewed him as well, and a lot of the actually outfits are worn by many of the top designers here in the Philippines. And right now it's really, really, really busy. Everyone's arriving all at the same time. Hi, say hi to the people here in the red carpet. There's Tim, and who else is there? Nicole is there. Senator Nancy is here now, and Aiko Melendez right there at the back. We're reporting live. Everyone is here. Hi, Aiko. Hello. So everyone is here, and I'm actually on a pedestal. I can't come close. Hey, Kate, come, Tim. So I can't really come up and interview people, but let's go and ask Tim here, who is wearing this. Tim, can you get up on stage with us? Okay. So we're now with Attorney Karen, and let's talk about your outfit.
Okay, hello. Hi,
Who are
Marie.
you wearing?
And I am wearing Puy Quiñones. Yeah, so it's just an oversized long barong. I wanted to keep it simple and afternoon chic so that I can sit down and really listen to what the president has to say.
Exactly. So this year, the theme is actually wearing something that, like symbolizes Filipino craftsmanship, Filipino materials and culture.
Yes.
How do you feel about that theme this year?
I love it that this administration has really championed that. And as you can see, the culture side has been really active, and Filipino designers and artisans have been really been on the go, and they're all like fully booked, making clothes for Filipinos, and people are wearing it with pride.
Yeah, I've heard some designers like Michael Leva made 100.
Wow, I know the numbers from the designers. I know Michael Leva made 100. I know that Paul Cabral made, as of like a few weeks ago, there was 40, and Puy Quiñones 30. But the number would also increase because there are some last minute. Some last minute bookings. Maybe they got their invitation last minute, so they have to like make stuff for them overnight or
Yes.
whatever.
And did you prepare? Is this your first time to attend a SONA as well?
Yes, it is my first time, and but because we attend a lot of events, so within my my closet I have red stuff ready for anything. If something were to if a Filipino occasion happens tomorrow, even anywhere I'm ready to go with my Filipino artillery.
Yes, so championing Filipino design as always, Tim. Thank you so much.
Always championing Filipino designers. All of us should do that.
So what are you looking forward to in the SONA?
I'm looking forward to a progress report of what's going to happen for the country, so that it's nice, parang we're all prepared when we listen to what the president will map out for us, so we know how to channel our energies towards and our goals as a nation together.
Okay, thank you so much, Tim. I'll
you.
see you later.
See you later.
Okay, so anyway, right now we're seeing more arrivals. They're actually on a queue. They're lining up to enter the hall right now because they will be closing at 3 p.m. So all the guests are actually arriving right now. And if you could just zoom in, you could see there's a line right now. Everyone is trying to have a moment. Every dress is they're trying to capture every single dress, but it's a little bit crowded. And this has so far been the busiest red carpet I've seen in the years that I've covered SONA. So now we're looking at more familiar faces. Attorney Karen, do you have any questions?
Well, Marie, I was curious to see some of the dresses there. Is there anyone that you can say that stands out for you?
Oh, I saw earlier. They're also stunning. I mean, everyone has really leveled up in terms of fashion. I feel like since they're championing Filipino design, everyone has really, leveled up in their designs. But I saw a constant best dressed, the wife of Senator Mark Villar's, M. Aglipay Villar. She looked really stunning in her Mark Baumgartner dress. So I'm gonna put her in my best dress list. And Senator Lauren Legarda, I did not get to ask her the Maria Clara she's wearing, but she looked absolutely beautiful. I think There was also a designer, oh, it was Francis Liburan's design of a Tausug-inspired dress, and that was of House Representative Sharitan Tambut. So that's Usug Tausug. And that was also very beautiful for me. And also Senator Bong Revilla arrived with Lani Mercado, and she was wearing a Mindanaoan inspired dress, and it's the first time she's doing it. She said she wanted to be different, so she chose that design by Rahul Laurel. And Isabel Daza was wearing a Dennis Lustico dress, and it was a modern terno in green. I thought also that was stunning, but more and more are arriving, and I'm seeing many more that I think are going to make it to my list this year.
Thank you so much, Marie. Marie also had an exclusive interview with internationally renowned fashion designer Mark Baumgartner. Let's watch this.
So let's talk about how big it is. You're dressing so many people this year.
Yeah, we're dressing quite a few. It's something me as a designer we look forward to every year. It's always exciting for us.
This year, what was the thing that stood out and where did you get your inspiration?
Well, this year, quite a few of the pieces are kind of more experimental on my end. It's something that some of the details or things that we did on the clothes are things or techniques that we haven't tried before. There's actually quite a few pieces here that I'm really excited about because they were really, really tedious and like required a lot of handwork. But we always like strive to, you know, put something out there that's timeless, but at the same time, it's always something contemporary and fit for the time, or you look 10 years later and it's still okay.
Yes.
I don't really go by trends as much as possible. That's just not who we are as a brand. Some pieces here are maybe 5, 6, 7 years old. Some pieces are this year. It's just...
You can't tell.
You can tell? I mean, hopefully you can tell it's by the same person.
Yeah, it's by the same
That's the goal.
But it looks really, really timeless.
Very early on in the process, we as much as possible try to go with what the client wants, but at the same time, sometimes what they want or the photo they show me is the same thing I've done, you know, in the past, and their pegs are the same from my collection. So I, as much as possible, try to kind of veer a certain client away if someone's already doing something similar, whether it's color or the detail, or even sometimes the political colors are similar or the same. So there's also certain things we have to do to kind of manage that.
Yes.
There's so much more we could do, but it's also a fine line also because of what the event is. There's a fine line of it being too loud.
Yes.
My rule always, because of the butterfly sleeves or anything to do with a Filipiniano or terno, is it always has to be modest. I'm not the type who would do like an overly showy or sexy outfit with that sleeve. It's just my preference, and as a brand also, I kind of live by that.
Your dress always makes it to the best dress. Is that something that, you know, you're just like, I hope I make it?
Maybe if you asked me that 5, 6 years ago, I would say I get excited for that. But for me, I don't really wait for that anymore. Because it's more like I kind of learn, especially because it is the SONA. It's not like it's, you know, a celebrity event or whatever. It's as long as I know I'm happy with what I delivered and the specific client is happy, I'm good done.
With me now in the studio is fashion enthusiast Ferdy Salvador. Good afternoon, Ferdy.
Good afternoon, Karen. It's great to be here in the studio with you.
I'm excited to get your thoughts on SONA fashion.
Yes, well, it is the Olympics of Philippine fashion and style. A lot of these people are showing us, of course, political leaders, leaders in industry, even the diplomatic corps, showing us the best of Filipino fashion creativity.
So I know that before you even came live here in the studio, you have been monitoring some of the clothes that are being worn now
Yes.
at the SONA. So what are your comments in terms of who stood out as being like really good, outstanding outfits, and also those that kind of are fashion fails?
Right. I wouldn't say fashion fails, but can be developed, and some of them do. One particular subject would be, of course, Senator Nancy Binay. She was bashed a few sonas in the past, but she's developed her style, and she actually hit it on the best dress list last year. So I'm excited to see what she's wearing. We also spoke to a lot of our friends in the fashion industry who they're watching out for. But of course, the regular fashion hits, which should be Tutsi Angara, the wife of Senator Sunny Angara. We also have, of course, Heart Evangelista. We've got Emily Aglipa, as Marie mentioned a while ago. We've got a lot of ladies that are going to be on my best dress list. And of course, like Len Alonte, I just saw what she was wearing. Pretty cool.
Well, are there any common themes that you're noticing for this year's SONA?
A lot of white.
White.
I can see a lot of white even in the opening of the Senate this morning. A lot of them were wearing white, and of course, I expected a lot of them to be wearing also traditional garb, such as Senator Lauren Legarda. She always wears something traditional. I wouldn't say traditional, but something more representative of our indigenous brothers and sisters, especially in the South or even in the North, like you, wearing a bell.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is my heritage. So
Yes.
you mean like for Senator Lauren Legarda, for example, it's her signature outfit
Yes.
to have that, I always see the patterns that she wears. So it's something that's kind of her signature look.
Yes, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I saw her ensemble this morning, and I think she was wearing a malong. So that's a great representation of her brethren in Mindanao. And I love seeing that. Even if they're not part of the province or not come from there, Pinoy is Pinoy, and it's good to be, really proud to be wearing these things.
What about fabrics? Is there anything that you find to be dominant in this year's SONA?
Yeah, aside from the men, obviously the men are going to be wearing a lot of piña. They're wearing a lot of natural fibers. But I see with the ladies, they're not wearing too much of that this year.
Okay.
A lot of embellishments, I would say.
Okay, so I'm curious to hear more about your thoughts, Ferdy.
Yes.
We already saw some of the outfits earlier at the Senate opening. But before we talk about that, Ferdy, let's take a quick rundown on last year's best dressed list.
Okay, so there were some notable best dressed guests last year. Of course, Heart Evangelista wore modern terno by Ivar Aceron. She wore a jumpsuit. Second look, she wore a piece from Michael Leyva, which we're expecting this today as well. And Margot Nograles, one of my best dressed, wore Porquinones. And I believe she's also wearing Porquinones this year. Jaja Chombian Rama, the wife of District Representative Edu Rama, wore a Filipiniana designed by Carrie Santiago. Audrey Tanzubiri wore a floral ensemble by Rahul Laurel. Milen Aquino Gonzalez and Vanya Romoff, another Cebuana. Len Alonte wore Michael Leyva, and I think today also she's going to be wearing him. And Tutsi Angara, she wore two Leslie Mobo pieces.
Great. Now let's talk about some of the outfits we saw earlier at the Senate opening.
Yes.
Senate President Cheese Escudero and his wife, Heart Evangelista, arrived first, both wearing Michael Leyva pieces. Risa Ontiveros wore a barot saya by Joel Acebuche, and Nancy Binay was in an alpiña terno designed by Randy Ortiz, handloom woven by master artisans in Aklan. And Senator Grace Poe donned a white terno by Paul Cabral. Senator Amy Marcos arrived in a Filipiniana-inspired Fernando Amorsolo's painting, Planting Rice. Okay, that's really unique. And still with today's SONA Fashion, Bilyonaryo News Channel also has an exclusive interview with fashion designer Dennis Lustico to give us a preview of who he has dressed for this year's SONA.
I'm Dennis Dennis Lustico. I'm a professional fashion designer. So I've been around for almost 25 years. Well, it's a yearly thing, and you know, the stress and the panic is still there. I'm making for one of the youngest congresswomen in the country, Aniela Tolentino. We're using a technique which I'm introducing for a show sometime in September. I'm making for Miss Gina de Venecia. She wants to wear it again. Odette Pomarin, the wife of Congressman Pomarin. It has to bring out her color and her figure. Always, I've been making for her, and I love her because she's young and youthful, and you know, she's cool. Monica Consing, the wife of the Maharlika Fund Chairman Joel Consing. Bel Daza also. For men, Congressman Plaza Bagusan. I study a lot. I mean, I look at the person. I ask about her preferences, if she has particular, let's say, color. We discuss materials. Making terno these days does not actually mean you're just confined to local fabrics like pinya or Philippine cotton. So I give them a lot of choices. I think it's a good thing that there's a day in a year that, you know, we get to express our being Filipino in terms of clothes. After pandemic, I tend not to complain. I always look at, you know, the good side and just work. So it's, yeah, as I've said, it's the same stress and all, but I tend not to, you know, I tend not to complain. I'm thankful that there's this thing every year, and then it gives us designers to challenge ourselves and experiment with new things, and then hopefully come up with something inspiring for the younger generation. Also at the same time making the clients happy.
So Ferdy, you saw the designs that Dennis Lustico prepared this year.
Yes.
Apart from Dennis, who were the other designers that you know of that created gowns for this year's SONA?
The super busy ones.
Yes.
I mean, they were working till 5 a.m. this morning. That would be obviously Mark Baumgartner, Ivar Lusquier-Ceron. I know Michael Leyva has done over 100 pieces.
Over 100, my
yes,
goodness.
Carrie Santiago, of course, always representing the glamorous ladies of Cebu and the Visayan region, and some, of course, from Manila. So those are the people that are normally the ones that actually make the ensembles for the SONA. But there are a lot of representatives also, or political leaders coming from the Visayas and even Mindanao, wearing local designers, such as Congresswoman Vanessa Montado, who's wearing a Boholano talent. And she sent me a photo. I was like, wow, what an amazing ensemble. I think she's on the red carpet at the moment. But
I'm curious to hear, so for local designers, what usually makes them different? Like, for example, for a Bohol designer,
yes.
what element did the designer use to stand out, or at least to show the Bohol heritage?
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily just the Bohol heritage, because we've done that. We've done the materials, we've done the natural stuff, people put wood or even coconut chips. But what I think is outstanding about them is they can actually compete and be at the same platform as, you know, renowned Manila fashion designers, or even Cebuano fashion designers.
Ferdy, there's always a focus on the women.
Yes.
But what about the men, like the barongs?
Yes,
like
there's a lot of them.
Who makes the barongs, and who makes all usually what types of barongs stand out?
To me, like, for example, what I'm wearing is fully calado, and this is by Dennis Lustico, and that's what I look for. I look for craftsmanship instead of just, okay, let's just go wear a barong just because we need to wear a barong if it's a national event. I look for quality, I look for intricacies, I look for something modern as well. Like I know Congressman Toff de Venecia of Pangasinan is known to break, the normal barong fashion.
Yeah, I've seen his barongs. They would have like some unique embroidery or unique colors.
Yes, I saw this morning. I think he's wearing two designers today. I think for this afternoon session with the president doing his speech is he wore a Varsaron with a Banig inspired vest. But his earlier session, he wore, I forget who the designer is at the moment because there's so many of them, but he wore something that's painted also and on the back.
So who among the senators and congressmen do you think stand out or, just make an effort to stand out in terms of their barongs or their outfits?
I know, okay, I'm going to talk about the
I know
young
Sal
ones.
Panelo before. He would
But
always stand
he's
out.
a statement,
Like, yes,
he goes, with his own beat and he'll wear whatever.
colors,
colors or even design-wise. And he's a fit guy, so, the trim is really great on him. But rather, what do we talk about? The young people from the Senate or even in Congress. You've got the D cousins, Ian and Ino D. They always look good. Duke Frasco looks amazing in a barong. So they can pretty much wear anything and look good. Of course, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian looks pretty good. All of them look good in the barong. It's just, it's the style, it's the vibe they emulate.
How come for men they don't veer away from the white collar or they don't?
They do.
Okay.
I'm expecting, I believe Congressman, Pacman Party List Congressman Mikey Romero is wearing black today.
Oh.
If
it's an
I'm not
unusual
mistaken.
color, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe it's by Mark Bumgarner. Some of them, Senator Robin Padilla, he's known to wear something, not very traditional. Like he also has a statement. I believe last year he wore sort of a Mindanao-inspired barong. So that's fun to look at. I think, it's all about character and how you want to basically put yourself out there with the Fashion Olympics.
Well, Ferdy, you've been monitoring, watching the State of the Nation address in different administrations.
Yes.
Have you seen a change in the outfits and even, how far people would go in terms of having really beautiful dresses or designer dresses, considering that during President Duterte's time, his first year as a president, he already said, I don't want SONA to look like a fashion show.
Yes.
So people dressed down. I was serving in the government that time and I didn't really
I
make an
remember.
effort to wear like an expensive dress. But so have you seen some changes over the years?
Yes, I do. I have seen the changes. With respect to the former president, he did what he had to do. He didn't want the glam put back into SONA, but I'm glad that we've shifted back to the glam of SONA because it really does represent a lot of Philippine culture in my point of view. Like under that administration, everything is very business. You know what I mean? Short dresses. Let's do the butterfly sleeve crop top, and we're good to go. But at least now, designers, you don't only get a designer to make you an outfit. It's a whole ecosystem. You've got your hair and makeup artists. You've got your accessories artisans. You've got people creating embroidery. So there's a whole economic structure. 1,000%. And how many people are invited or must attend SONA? Over 1,000, more maybe 2,000, whatever it may be. But can you imagine the amount that generates for our artisans in the province or even in Metro Manila?
What happens to the dresses after the SONA?
I've got a lot of friends.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of friends that regularly attend. The wife of Congressman Jack Duavit, Margie Duavit, actually recycles her clothes. This year, she had a terno redone by Patrice Ramos, and it was just finished. And that's excellent. I know Senator Lauren Legarda also repurposes some of her fabrics, which is cool. Senator Risa Ontiveros also does the same thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so it's great to hear that there's sustainability in
Yes.
fashion. Like
Yes.
there's re-wearing, repurposing. Because so much effort, like you said, by artisans. It's such a waste if it just gets used once.
Correct. Tutsi
But
Angara, the wife of now Education Secretary Sani Angara, repurposes. And she's proud of that.
That's great to hear. And now we were also able to speak with another distinguished Filipino fashion designer, Michael Leyva, who reportedly did over 100 designs for this year's SONA. Let's take a watch.
How can you make, let's say, 100 Filipiniana different from each other? SONA month is the toughest month for me as a designer. Aside from it being the busiest, I think, kasi we are doing so many congresswomen, senators, senatorial spouses. It's something na, alam mo yung parang for me as a designer, pinaka-pigaan ng utak. Actually, for this year's SONA, this is gonna be, for me, the most exciting SONA that I've gonna be doing. Kasi aside from medyo super dami ng gagawin namin, it's really more of, I am very excited because each design represents the one that is gonna be wearing it. I always wanted it to be classic still. Kailangan 20, 50 years after, maganda pa rin siya tingnan. So, ang goal ko as a designer na sana 20, 50 years from now, pag nakita nila yung damit na ginawa ko sa SONA, it's still beautiful, it's still timeless, it's still classy, it's still elegant. We are very lucky to have our First Lady of the country today, First Lady Luis Araneta Marcos. I've been doing her dresses also for some of her events, Filipinianas, for her in her state visit in all over the world. Actually, I'm really very grateful na every time may lalabas na best dress list, napapasama yung mga ginagawa natin, yung mga muses. Yes, nakaka-pressure, but at the end of the day, what more important is my clients are happy wearing their piece. If they are confident wearing a piece I made for them, wholeheartedly, ginawa ko yun ng buong puso, mas masayang mapakinggan na nagustuhan nila. And yes, grabe yung pressure, but kaya naman so far. Ang SONA for me ay isang napakalaking platform for us designers to showcase what and who the designers of the Philippines are and what are they capable of doing. For me, it's not about a fashion show. It's more of pagpapakita kung gaano kayaman ang kultura na meron tayo. It's more of giving tribute to the heritage, giving tribute to the rich culture and history we have here in the Philippines.
Thank you, Ferdy, for joining us in this SONA coverage. It was really wonderful to have you here.
It's my pleasure, and I'm sure we're going to see each other more often in this type of coverage.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Welcome back. You're still watching SONA 2024, The Nation's Agenda, the Bilyonaryo News Channel's special coverage of President Bongbong Marcos's third SONA. In a few minutes, President Marcos will deliver his third State of the Nation address. All is set in the Batasan complex as we await the arrival of the President. And Secretary Edwin Lascerda is back with me in the studio.
We've seen some of the VIP guests, apart from the lawmakers, have arrived. And see, there's a lot of... this is new, by the way. For me, during our time, it was less organized as under this administration.
What do you mean less organized? Well, I've attended... I was actually at the last State of the Nation address of President Benigno Aquino III,
Right.
and some of the State of the Nation addresses of President Duterte. I've always felt that it was organized. You know, like when you arrive, security is always tight. And then, you know, the arrival of the cars, and once you walk that red carpet, it seems like there's already a protocol to it. But Edwin, what makes you say that this is a bit different?
It's different. Well, number one, it's always like your previous guest mentioned, it's a fashion event. It's really a fashion event. Everybody turns out in their Sunday best. But the way it's organized, I mean the cordon and all that stuff, I don't recall having that. I've seen that during our time, but it's really an event for people to ogle at their lawmakers. Lawmakers from the perspective, what are they wearing? Yeah. So both senators and congressmen and women. So it's very, very fascinating that this has turned out to be a political event, turned out into a fashion event every SONA, every year.
But I have to say, Edwin, I can objectively say that during the time of former President Duterte, he did have a strong statement at the start that he didn't want SONA to be a fashion show. So I remember the first State of the Nation address when I attended, people really dressed down. And some were wearing like office attire. Even the food, he didn't want it to be too extravagant. So a lot of people like wore pants, office attire, black, and then some Filipiniana accent.
You know, the funny thing always in a SONA in this way, that you'd see the most different costumes are worn by our friends from the progressive left. They'd always have a theme for their attire. There's always a theme about, during our time, it was PDAF. So I don't know I haven't seen any progressive member yet pass through, but it'd be interesting to see what they wear. Or the others, it's really bongga talaga.
Yes, I agree. And we saw earlier the sister of the president, Senator Amy Marcos, arriving in, you know, a very outstanding color. It's green, but she was also wearing a tiara.
Oh yeah,
yes. So she really stood out.
Is that symbolic of anything?
Well, I don't know. Well, she is technically part of the first family at this moment as the sister of the president. I also saw Senator Pia Cayetano wearing Filipiniana in black, so a very unusual color, but you know, it suited her very well.
It's really more an observation on the female legislators. Like you said, guys don't really just wear the same barong, very little differentiation, but when it comes to our female legislators, everybody comes in their best, and everybody has a different way of portraying themselves in that whole way.
Edwin, I'm curious. So you did say that you noticed some difference in today's SONA in terms of having, like, I guess, like the cordoned off area. I did hear that they tightened security, and I think it came maybe as a reaction to recently events in the U.S. You've had this, what they're calling an assassination attempt on presidential candidate Donald Trump. Do you think that had an effect on the preparations for the State of the Nation address today?
It's possible, but let me just give credit to the PSG. Whenever the president is involved, security is very, very tight, and you're supposed to be there at a certain time. And we have our metal detectors. So I've never seen an event in the Philippines where, to my recollection, that the president has been threatened, especially in close areas like the Batasan, where in addition to the presidential security guard, you've got the house security also in the premises. So maybe that's just a precaution as to what happened in the States. But I would like to give credit to our security sector. They're very, very well versed with how to protect very important people.
Well, as now that we're waiting for the arrival of the president, in your years of service under President Benigno Aquino III, was it customary for the president to arrive in a helicopter, or have there been instances where the president arrives in a car?
There's always a debate. Do you go by land or do you fly through helicopter? And there's always a concern on the demonstrations. So that's why it's a PSG's call. Whenever there's an event like this, the PSG takes precedence. So whatever the advice is, you follow the advice of the PSG. So I think it's the fastest way also. A few minutes from the palace, you fly over to Batasan. It's safer in that regard. So I would imagine that President Marcos would also take the helicopter.
One thing I did notice, Edwin, is that there was really no sighting of Vice President Sara Duterte. So she really did what she said earlier. She really did keep her word that she's not attending the third State of the Nation address. We have Congressman Paulo Duterte, who's incumbent congressman, but I also didn't see him.
Yeah.
So do you think that the Duterte family is a no-show? Because it's also customary for past presidents of the Philippines to attend the State of the Nation address.
I remember both former Vice President Bina and former Vice President Leni Robredo attended, even if there was a conflict. So I think it's a statement of some sort. I think the friction between Duterte and the Marcoses have really galvanized.
Okay, so as already reported, Vice President Sara Duterte won't be at the SONA. In a statement from the Office of the Vice President, VP Sara is in Bohol to empathize with the Boholanos for death of their vice governor. And, quote, to uplift the general mood of the people brought about by the suspension of their duly elected local officials. So I think that's, well, this is a new development. I knew she was not attending the State of the Nation address, but I didn't know she was going to be in Bohol because there was a recent interview of her during the turnover ceremonies for the Department of Education,
Right.
where she said she was going to be watching the SONA from Manila.
You know, Malu and Ed were here a while ago. There's an anomaly in the current situation between the Marcoses and the Dutertes. For one, the Vice President never breaks away from the President this early. If you look at Vice President Leni Robredo, if you look at Vice President Binay, and for instance, Vice President Binay had the very intention of running for the President. So he knew he had to be close to the President because our traditional survey says that if you break away with the President, your numbers suffer. So at this time, at this early, this is very strange because it's not yet midterm, it's only now, and then Vice President Sara Duterte decided to break away. Will it have a falling out or impact on the survey? We have yet to see that. But you normally don't break away from the President because as far as Filipinos are concerned, the President is like our father of the nation. So you don't break away with him. That's why, and this is the only time where the President and Vice President of the same team won. Mm-hmm. All elections should always have the President from one party, the Vice President from another party, from Cory down to until before Marcos and Duterte, it has always been from two different parties. Here you've got two, they're affiliated, they're one team, and they won. But surprisingly, they just broke off so early. So now it's a question now, and obviously President Marcos will not be running again. So you'll now see what will happen to the survey numbers of Sara Duterte. And during the midterm, the number one senator who is elected is always considered a presidentiable. So he or she may decide to run against the vice president because the vice president, as we know, is already a presidentiable at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, Edwin, it's interesting that you mentioned surveys because the recent Pulse Asia surveys with data collected in June came out this July.
Right.
And it seems like the approval ratings of Vice President Sara Duterte is higher.
But that's always the case. In every survey, the numbers of the vice president, except for Vice President Leni, the numbers of the vice president is always higher than the president. During our time, Vice President Binay's numbers were always above the president. But here's the anomaly also in this point. This is the only time where the numbers of the vice president likewise fell. Together with in one survey previously, the numbers of Vice President Duterte fell along with the numbers of President Marcos.
And this is before they broke away
This is
from
before
each
they
other.
broke. I think this was during the time when they were questioning the intelligence fund of the Office of the Vice President. I think she got affected by that. But obviously, it's really a snapshot in time.
Yes.
So now her numbers have recovered. But then we don't see now what will be the effect of. Will there be a long-term impact when after Vice President Duterte broke away from President Marcos?
Yes, that's going to be very interesting because I think some of the dates when the data were collected were after the vice president already announced that she was leaving the cabinet.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so
Very, very interesting to see. So the fact that she didn't show up on today's SONA, although she's telegraphed that to us days before, it's really a signal to them that the line has been drawn. I'm on the other side, and he will be the fiscalizer to a large degree, and promoting her own image, her own message. So that's interesting on who will be competing with Vice President Sara in 2028.
Edwin, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Mindanao as a region. So when I looked at that Pulse Asia survey on approval ratings, one thing stood out for me, and it's the approval rating of Vice President Sara. When it comes to Mindanao, she practically had a perfect score at 95.
Right.
So do you think this breakaway between the president and the vice president would also have an impact on the president's approval rating, considering there seems to be a strong loyalty from Mindanao in favor of the vice president?
It might have. In fact, the fact that you have Mindanao as a political base is formidable. And don't forget that Sara is also a Bisaya, speaks Bisaya. So her political base is not just Mindanao, but the Cebuano-speaking provinces of Visayas. So that's a huge base. So in order to win against Vice President Duterte, you have to really do well on the Luzon and some parts of the Visayas, and hopefully pockets of Mindanao. But as it is right now, she commands a strong lead. So whoever will compete against her will compete against geography. We're very loyal to our regions. So like the Bicolanos are very loyal to Leni Robredo, and the Dutertes, the Mindanaoans are very, very loyal to Duterte. So it's interesting to see who will be able to compete strongly against Vice President Duterte in 2028. Plus, on the midterm side, you will see now if she fields her own set of candidates. Now it's a question of that. Now that's a question on the referendum of the president.
Yes.
It's because the midterms, if the more the president's candidates win, that shows. I agree with it's a referendum on the president at that point. So interesting, if Sara's candidates win, then that might be problematic for President Marcos in lawmaking.
Yes. And during the time of President Duterte, again, like you mentioned, there was not this break that was so early that it would have an impact on the midterm elections. And for the first time, we're really seeing two strong personalities in politics, the Dutertes and the Marcoses, breaking away from each other, and then in all likelihood, fielding their own candidates for the midterm elections.
But the other concern of the Marcos side is also you somewhat see a house divided. Amy doesn't seem to be singing with or dancing in the tune of the Marcoses as well. She's always had a different platform vis-a-vis President Marcos. So I think if I was a Marcos or a Romualdez, I would be concerned with also the power base of Senator Amy Marcos. Her son is a governor of Ilocos Norte. That's supposedly the stronghold of the Marcoses. It's good that the Marcoses, the Ilocanos, continue to revere the Marcos name. So that's why I think that's a good political base for the Marcos. But vis-a-vis the Dutertes, the House Marcos seem to be a little bit fractured. So that's a great concern for them as well.
Well, something that I want to hear your thoughts on would be the Arroyo family, like former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. It seems like she used to be an ally of Vice President Sara Duterte, and we don't see much of what her activities are, but do you think she will be part of the midterm elections, and who will she be siding with?
I think she will always continue to be a power broker. The thing is, the loyalty of the people towards GMA will always be there. A lot of all these congressmen and senators have some ties or connections with the President Arroyo. So she will continue to be a power broker, but that influence will come very, very prominently in 2028. Because right now, she can be on the side of the Dutertes, on the side of the Marcoses. It doesn't matter to her. But it's her political base, her influence, her time to take back. May utang ka sa akin, I'm now calling in the chips. She can do that because she has helped a lot of our politicians. The political dynasties, the politicians per se, these are all, they have one form of another indebted to President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo.
Edwin, what do you think of the opposition? Do we really have an opposition right now? Well, before we had, again, Vice President Sara Duterte being part of the UNI team, but now that she's broken off, is she the real opposition? Or we have Vice President Leni Robredo, who fared very well in the 2022 elections. Do you think the opposition will come from that side?
As far as I know, Vice President Leni Robredo does not intend to run for a national post. So you're left with some former senators. In the case of the Liberal Party, that's Kiko Pangilinan and Aquino. So, but we'll see. But it's kind of fractured right now. It doesn't seem to be, they don't seem to be a potent force. But if you include the Zubiris, the ones who've been removed, that might be another. And we have to consider the candidates of Vice President Duterte on the senatorial elections. If they win, that would be a big, potent opposition force.
Very interesting. The dynamics have really changed over time, but like you said, there are some people whose personalities remain constant, like former President Arroyo being really like a power broker that is still here and visible.
Yes. So it's interesting dynamics. Oh, there's a, yeah.
Oh, yeah. What we're seeing right now, Edwin, is the arrival of the presidential helicopter. And like you said, right, it's always a call of the presidential security group as to how the president will arrive. And it seems like this year, as in last year, he arrived in the presidential helicopter.
It's a big one. I've ridden on that. It's a pretty big one, yeah.
Oh, how exciting if you've tried really riding this. I was concerned earlier, the rain was really strong. So I was wondering if they were going to abandon having the helicopter be the form of transportation because, with the helicopters, usually they're very sensitive to the weather.
So that means the pilots did a go signal, said we can fly safely, so they decided to go by air. So it's good that the president has landed, so he has arrived safely.
But Edwin, I'm curious, where did he come from? Because that's always been a question for me as as an ordinary citizen. Like, I had the impression that the president lives in Malacanang. Of course, from Malacanang, when you go to Batasan, I felt like, it's so easy to get by car. But do they really come from Malacanang? And
they fly from, not Malacanang per se, but the Malacanang compound, which includes the PSG compound on the other side of the Pasig River. That's where the base of the helicopters are stationed. So he could have just taken that from the Malacanang compound. It's easier, actually. Coming from Malacanang, you have to go all the way Aurora. But it's a pretty long ride, and you have to stop all the traffic. It's better to go by air.
Okay, customarily, who rides with the president in the helicopter?
Normally, it's the First Lady.
Okay.
The PSG head. It depends on if he asks some cabinet ministers to join him, but basically it's just President Marcos, maybe some others. But PSG is definitely there.
Yeah, so now we're seeing President Marcos arriving and without the First Lady. So it seems like he rode the presidential helicopter by himself. And we will see who will be welcoming him. Traditionally,
it's traditionally the Speaker and the Senate President. So they'll be there to welcome. And after he's ushered in, they'll go first to a room provided for them by the Speaker of the House, and to rest a bit before he goes to the main hall of Batasan to deliver his SONA.
Well, right now, Edwin, it's 3:35, so it seems like the President will start the State of the Nation address on time.
By the way, this is the only time under the Constitution that the President is invited to the legislative branch. This is based on the old tradition where, remember in the UK Parliament, the former King Charles stormed, and that's why they stopped. Nowadays, you have to ask for an invite from the lawmakers. So we follow that tradition, similar to the US Congress. So you see President Marcos being invited.
That's why the welcoming party is the Senate President and the Speaker of the House. And now we're also seeing the House Minority Leader, Congressman Nonoy Libanan. So basically, is that the Senate Pro Tempore, Jinggoy Estrada, and then not familiar, I can't see clearly.
But these are the leaders of both houses ushering him to the legislative branch. This is symbolic of the invitation from the legislative branch to the executive branch to come and participate. And this is a constitutional mandate that he delivers as State of the Nation.
And it's always the third Monday of July.
Right.
And even the time is indicated, right?
Right.
In the Constitution, it has to be at 4 p.m.
Right.
And now they're entering the holding room.
Yeah, that's a holding room. It's a good time to be doing some little banter. If you've got some legislative concerns, you can bring it up to the president. So it's a time for them to just chit-chat.
And I also see the presidential son, Sandro Marcos, being part of the welcoming party.
Right, and while the president and the first lady are there, all the cabinet ministers, secretaries have already been invited to sit in the gallery up there and wait, and also the diplomatic corps. So the diplomatic corps and the cabinet secretaries are seated beside each other, and so everybody's waiting for their arrival.
And we're also seeing Senator Amy Marcos, the sister of the president, also being at the holding room. So how long does it normally take for the president and the leaders of Congress to sit in the holding room before the start of the meeting?
It depends. For as long as you make sure that you try to comply as nearly to the constitutional requirement. But basically, it's just making sure that maybe checking also on the main hall. Are they all there? Can we start? So all these preparations are being done in the main gallery while the president and the leaders of both houses just discuss. There's the Vatican ambassador. Those are the diplomatic corps there. And by the way, it was during our time, because President Aquino would speak in Tagalog, we would provide, what do you call it, translators?
Oh, the translators, like the headsets
because
for
that's
the
a
members of the
requirement
diplomat.
of President Aquino. But this time, since President Marcos will deliver in English, that should not be a problem for this year.
Edwin, I'm curious. So we're seeing all the other guests inside the Batasan complex, the session hall, already seated. And the times I've attended the State of the Nation address, they've also required us to just stay in our seats.
Right.
You're not allowed to leave within the hour before the president arrives. So for people who are sitting there, you just can't go to the restroom, can't drink, can't eat.
Maybe for the guests. I think for the lawmakers, since they're recognized by the security, they'd allow you to do. For instance, us also, when we were there, they would allow us to leave. But maybe perhaps for the guests themselves, it would be very, very strict.
What about jammers? Do they have jammers for mobile phones?
I don't. During our time, we can still text one.
I remember from our like.
You have a jammer?
Yes, when the speech starts, and usually when the president arrives within the complex, there's already jammers. So you're just left to chat with your seatmate. So you better have a good seatmate because you can't text, you can't leave. There's basically just really waiting for the SONA to start.
You know, this is a huge job for whoever's minding RTVM because they have to make sure to pan to every cabinet minister whenever the president's addressing. So they should know each and every cabinet secretary where they are. So that, by the way, there's a prepared speech anyway. So they can take a look at the speech. Or the president will be mentioning so and so, better make sure where is that guy or that fellow, and we pan to him.
Okay.
So those are it's a real job, very difficult job on the part of those people behind the scenes, behind the camera.
You know, Edwin, something I noticed as well, in terms of just the difference in dynamics, I just saw on camera, Special Assistant to the President, Anton Lagdameo, sitting in the session hall with the other cabinet members, whereas the previous president, President Duterte, you always have the Special Assistant to the President really being with the president all the time, in the holding room, and once he enters the session hall as well. So again, difference in the dynamics. And during the time of President Aquino,
we would have the executive secretary always with him.
Okay.
It's a ES, and then but if Secretary Lagdameo can sit in the session hall, that's a privilege given to former legislators. So if you're a former legislator, you can sit in the session hall.
Oh, so if
So
you're,
if you're a former senator, former congressman, you can sit in the session hall
okay.
because the respect is accorded you being a member of the House.
But
or
if
the
you're
Senate.
a cabinet secretary, your seat is normally
You're up there. I think be up there behind the wall.
not among the desks. Like
No, not among them. By the way,
yes.
this is a nice, the color is nice. The blue is, I remember during our time, I don't know with President Duterte's time if it's red. but
I remember red. Yes.
This is a nice
So this
color.
is a different color.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's good that you pointed that out. I didn't even mention, notice until you mentioned that the color has changed.
Yeah,
So
very,
perhaps
very
they've
bright,
changed the
very
colors.
nice. And they have tables. I mean, it's elevated. It used to be just one flat surface. Now they have elevated tables. I mean, depending on where the cabinet, the salons are seated. But it's a very, very nice deviation from the previous ones. Red was quite dark. Blue is quite, it's a very nice, maybe, I don't know, maybe is that the color of President Marcos? Is that why they changed
I don't think so.
It'd be
I think
interesting.
yeah. I know he has the red and the blue, like it appears in the Bagong Pilipinas logo that they launched. But Edwin, one of the criticisms for this year's State of the Nation address was the budget. I've heard like some people criticizing it as being too much for, I guess like considering the country's problems. Who determines the budget? And
Well, the budget is, well, this one, by the way, I'm not sure this is the expense of the palace. This is more the cost from the legislature side because the president is merely a guest of the House and the Senate. So if ever it's expensive, maybe the House and or the Speaker might want to explain why the cost is so much.
Okay.
I wouldn't know, but it's really not, it's not the cost accrued to the president.
okay, so the food and everything, it's really the call of
The House and the
Congress.
Senate. It's
Okay.
called a call of Congress. That's correct.
That's
So
interesting.
that's, for instance, that's Senator Joel Villanueva in the he was a former party list and now a senator.
Yes, and I'm seeing Senator Nancy Binay as well. So you're right, like all the desks are for the legislators and cabinet secretaries sit together. Well, I think Special Assistant to the President,
Yeah, was
Anton
there.
Lagdameo, is sitting along with other cabinet members. What about the seating for former presidents? Where are they normally located?
They're at the elevated level on the first line. So, friends, during our time, President Fidel Ramos would still go. But, well, President Arroyo, I think when she was there, she would sit in the session hall because she was a congresswoman then. But other than that, if you're a former president, you'd be seated in the first line where the cabinet secretaries are sitting.
Okay, and then the diplomats.
The diplomats,
are
for instance, these
seated-
are the first line of the vice president, and then the diplomatic corps, and then the cabinet secretaries. That's how the order is.
Edwin, what happens when you have people not attending? So, for example, customarily you have the vice president attending, and in this case, you already said earlier that she won't attend. Is there like a need to fill out the seats and assign the seats to someone
They'll
else?
just assign it to someone else.
Okay.
So, but that shouldn't be. And also, by the way, former senators are also in that line where the vice president would sit. For instance, the late Senator Ernest Maceda, he would stay there in that particular line. So, that's interesting. The importance of respect, courtesy, and to former members of the House and Senate are duly acknowledged by the protocol. So they have to be informed early on so that they can assign the proper seat to a former senator or to a former congressman.
Interestingly, Edwin, I can see that Secretary Angara, who's a former senator, is now sitting next to DPWH Public Works Secretary Manny Bonoan. So this is where you see really the protocol, no? Because he could have sat in a desk along with the other senators, but since he already took his office as Department of Education Secretary, he's now sitting along with the cabinet members.
And relations among the cabinet secretaries are quite strong because they work on a day. They don't see each other on a daily basis, but they communicate with each other on a very regular basis. And compared to us, the president holds more regular the entire cabinet. We would do that only when approving the budget and also for NEDA projects. But approving the budget and approving NEDA projects. But other than that, the president would meet in small clusters.
And now I'm seeing the diplomats sitting
Yes.
together, and this is what you were describing, that
Right.
they're in the second row
Yes.
of the hall. Earlier, I also saw BIR Commissioner June Lumagi sitting next
there
to
he
PAGCOR
is.
Chairman Al Tenco.
Yes. They're what we call the sub-cabinet level. They hold agencies, very important agencies, but
They tend to sit behind department secretaries. Is that
no,
the
they sit in front.
Oh, interesting.
So all the cabinet secretaries are seated right up there. They're about to leave now.
Okay.
So
Yeah, we are now seeing the leadership of Senate and the House of Representatives taking one last group photo with the president,
right.
which means that he's probably starting to walk towards
Yes.
the session hall, to the plenary.
And if you see the main hall, everybody's asked to sit down already. The only people standing up will be the PSGs, but the rest are all asked to be seated already. So there's a signal that the president is about to come.
Okay, one last photo again. I can also see Majority Floor Leader Don Gonzales. And it looks like the president is really set to start the State of the Nation address at 4 p.m.
For us cabinet secretaries, there's a sense of awe when you attend a SONA because it's not every day that you visit the house. You go there to defend your budget and the SONA.
Yes.
So it's so impressive. You see the awe and the majesty of the legislative branch. And that for us is something to really wonder and to really be amazed at.
Yeah. Well, what I like as a lawyer is just seeing how concise the directions are in the Constitution, where you have to hold it at this date and at this time.
Yeah.
So last night, it was raining. Early this morning, it was raining very hard. So I was wondering, well, couldn't have picked a better date. This is
Right.
rainy season, July, but that's what's in our Constitution. But it is interesting to see how we really held up to the tradition and we really observe this every year.
It's also one of the part of being a fashion gala event. You also see who are the guests who are present. So everybody gets to see sino yun, sino yun, sino yun. So it's interesting to see who are the close friends of the president, who are the guests of the families of the president. So it's so many things to do trivia with. So
Yeah. Edwin, I'm curious. So there are some people who get to attend, even if they don't have a role in the legislature or they're not family members. So what is the limit, like in terms of the ability to attend the SONA or to be invited?
it's the call of the House, but in coordination, more prominence is given to the guests of the first family. But for the rest, this may be guests also of the lawmakers. Like for instance, as cabinet secretaries, we don't bring our guests. This is a show of the legislature for the president. So apart from the guests of the first family, I would assume most of them are friends of the lawmakers and supporters of the president. But they have to give a list to the House for
And like you said,
vetting.
it's really Congress inviting
Right.
the president. So
That's
it's
correct.
really, the priority is really more their guest list as
Right.
well. Earlier, I just saw some of the other cabinet members, Environment Secretary Tony Yulo
Loizaga.
Loizaga, and
That's Fred Pascual, the silver-haired cabinet secretary.
good spotting. But you're right. It is interesting to see who's attending and getting to spot the personalities in the crowd because it is a very big main hall and so many people attending.
Yeah, it's so exciting to see the president coming, and the gala of it all. You feel a sense of pride being in that hall because you know that this is the only time that the president will visit Congress.
I spotted former President Joseph Estrada in the crowd wearing a white barong. And
That's Popoy de Vera over there.
Interesting. And I think I saw also Senator Risa Ontiveros earlier in a yellow Filipiniana.
This is also a time where parties from different sides, whether opposition or administration, will come together in civility and just chatting with each other. You see the human side of our lawmakers without taking away all the political affiliations. You see that these people can talk to each other pala.
Well, so I'm seeing former President Joseph Estrada without President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, former President GMA. So I'm wondering if former GMA attended the SONA today.
Should be interesting to see if she attended.
Yeah. And I'm seeing, is that Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo?
Enrique Manalo, yeah.
And Edwin, after this, is it customary for everyone to attend the merienda that's served?
Well, no naman. It's you can do so if you want, but any chance to have a picture taken with the president is something that every lawmaker would like to have a selfie with. It's similar to any other people who'd like to have a selfie with the president. So it is also an opportunity for the lawmakers to have a chance to take a photo with the president and the first family.
Oh, so you mean like a lot of people stay afterwards, not because they're hungry, but more so, perhaps a bit hungry, but more so to take a photo
so
with
it
the
would be a
president
good
and the first family.
because that's, like I said, not all these lawmakers also see the president on very infrequent pace. So when they are called to the palace, for instance, for a political event, but otherwise, there's opportunities for selfie with the president. They're human after all. So.
Yeah. Well, Edwin, it's now 5 minutes before 4. How long is the walk from the holding room to the main hall?
Oh, that's short. About 2 minutes or less.
So I guess
short.
like it's not really an issue of them walking. Perhaps they still really have not decided to enter the main hall.
Yeah. I remember there was one State of the Nation address where there was a question of, remember the time when Speaker Alvarez was removed?
Yes, that was very memorable.
It took a while before the president was able to deliver the SONA. And that was really unscripted. Nobody knew that was happening. But I think other than that exception, this is really a well-oiled script. So everything's been fixed. For us, for instance, in our case, when we were there, on the Sunday before the Monday, we would go to Batasan to make sure everything's okay. How's the translation? How's the translation box? How are everybody to be seated? So we coordinate with the staff in the house. We ask permission to visit on the Sunday just to make sure.
And as presidential spokesperson at that time, Edwin, did you have to grant interviews on the day of the SONA?
Yes, and the typical question is, ano ang topic?
Well, now, Edwin, we're gonna turn over to our broadcast to Batasan Pambansa and really find out what's going on there. So let's turn over to the Batasan Pambansa.
Every Filipino has unanimously risen to the challenge that we have made to them to be part of our nation's future. Handa silang maghandog ng tulong dahil mahal nila ang kanilang kapwa Pilipino at mahal na mahal nila ang Pilipinas. With this in my heart, I know that the state of the nation is sound and is improving. Dumating na po ang bagong Pilipinas.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, His Excellency Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
On the part of the Senate, the joint session is called to order.
On the part of the House of Representatives, the joint session is called to order. Please rise for the singing of the Philippine National Anthem to be led by Ms. Blessy May Abagat.
Kayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay, lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bugha, may dilag ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal, ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidilim, lupa ng araw ng luwal, atit pagsinta, may langit sa piling mo, aming ligaya na pag may mang-aapi, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Please remain standing for the nation's prayer.
Sa aming manlilikha, tagapagtaguyod, maraming salamat po sa iyong pagpapala sa pagbibigay ng mga kailangan namin sa araw-araw at tungo sa mas masagana pang bukas. Salamat din po sa inyong paghahayag sa aming pamunuan at mamamayan ng mga dakilang pangitain at adhikain upang higit pang mapaunlad ang bansa para sa kapakanan ng lahat.
Salamat po sa inyong matatapat na pagtuturo at pag-akay sa amin sa landas ng pamamahala at ng pagkamamamayan sa pagharap at pananagumpay sa mga hamon at balakid sa aming mga pambansang halikain at sa pagtahak ng daan tungo sa katatagan, kapayapaan at katahimikan, lalo na po ninyo kaming bigyan ng karunungan upang higit pang matuto sa mga aral na nakaraan. At maliwanagan ninyo ng diwa ang bawat hakbang namin sa landas ng pagkabayan at pagkabansa.
Turuan niyo po kaming lalo pang magkaisa at magtulungan para sa ikatitibay ng lipunan at ng bansa. Na higit pa naming lingapin at palusugin ang bayan. Pagpalain niyo po ang aming mga pinuno, mga tagapamahala, upang ang kanilang mga isip at pangitain, mga kilos, gawa at pagsisikap ay laging humantong sa paglilingkod na lalo pang matapat at mahusay. Gabayan niyo po ang kanilang panunungkulan upang lalo pang magbunga ng mga biyayang tuluyang nakararating at natatamasa ng lahat.
Akayin niyo po kami sa daan at direksyon ng higit pang mulat, sangkot at responsableng pagkamamayan upang ang aming bawat galaw ay makatulong sa higit pang pag-aayos at pagpapaunlad ng bansa. Turuan niyo po kaming lahat na laging unahin ang kapakanan ng bayan ng kalahatan higit sa interes na makasarili lamang. Turuan niyo po kaming higit pang lingapin ang kapwa mamamayan.
Opo, turuan niyo po kaming pahalagahan ang bawat isa. At sa aming demokrasya, nawa po'y laging mangibabaw ang ikabubuti ng higit na marami. At nawa po laging maghari ang kapayapaan. Nawa po sa aming pagpaparaanan, sa aming pagbibigayan, pagtutulungan at pagkakaisa ay maiahon at maiangat ang aming bayan tungo sa kinabukasan na higit po na aming pakikinabangan, mas mabuti, mas maganda, mas mapagkalinga sa lahat. Nawa rin po sa aming pagmamahalan sa isa't isa ay maluwalhati at mabigyan namin ng papuri ang iyong banal na pangalan.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of the Congress of the Philippines, His Excellency Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr., President of the Republic of the Philippines.
Thank you. Allow me to greet the former presidents who are with us here today, President Joseph Ejercito Estrada and President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, Senate President Chis Escudero, and the honorable members of the Senate, House Speaker Martin Romualdez, and the honorable members of the House of Representatives, Chief Justice Alexander Gesmundo, and the Honorable Justices of the Supreme Court, His Excellency, the Most Reverend Charles John Brown, and the esteemed members of the Diplomatic Corps, Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin, and the members of the Cabinet, of course, the First Lady Luis Araneta Marcos, other distinguished guests, mga minamahal kong kababayan, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. The hard lesson of this last year has made it very clear that whatever current data proudly bannering our country as among the best performing in Asia means nothing to a Filipino who is confronted by the price of rice at 45 to 65 pesos per kilo. Bagamat maganda ang mga statistikang ito, wala itong kabuluhan sa ating kababayan na hinaharap ang realidad na mataas ang presyo ng mga bilihin, lalo na ang pagkain, lalo't higit ng bigas. Totoo, puwersa ng merkado sa ating bansa at maging sa buong daigdig ang siyang nagdidikta ng presyo. Bunso dito, halimbawa, ng giyera, problema sa supply, at puwersa ng kalikasan tulad ng El Nino na naranasan din sa ibang bansa. Subalit, hindi na ito mahalagang alalahanin ng ating mga kababayang nabibigatan sa presyo ng bigas. Mahal kong mga kababayan, alam kong damang-dama ninyo ito. Hindi natin winawalang bahala ang inyong mga hinain at hirap na dinaranas. Sa kabila ng mga hamon ng ating kinakaharap, nasaksihan natin ang pinakamataas na ani ng palay sa bansa nitong nakalipas na taon. Pumalo ito sa lagpas 20 milyong tonelada, ang pinakamataas na ani mula noong 1987. Gayunpaman, ang ani na ito ay katumbas lamang ng 13 milyong tonelada ng bigas. Kulang pa rin ito para sa ating pangangailangan na 16 na milyong tonelada ng bigas, kung kaya't napipilitan tayong mag-angkat. Ngunit, lokal na produksyon pa rin ang ating mas bibigyan ng halaga. Kaya patuloy nating sinusuportahan ang sektor ng agrikultura upang mapabilis, mapadali at mapalakas ang produksyon mula sa pagpunla, pag-ani at paghuli hanggang sa pagbiyahe at pagbenta upang maiwasan din ang pagkasira ng mga produkto. Nitong nakalipas na taon, higit 100 milyong kilo ng mga sari-saring binhi, suwi at pataba nang ipinamahagi sa mga magsasaka. Namigay rin ang pamahalaan ng mahigit 300,000 inahin upang ito ay maparami. Para naman sa mga mangingisda, mahigit 500 milyong fingerlings at 3,000 mga bangka ang napamahagi. Nakakatulong din ang mga ginawa at inayos ng mga fish port at cold storage upang masuportahan ang kanilang industriya. Bukod pa sa mga ito, naroon din ang mga teknikal at pinansyal na tulong para sa dagdag na kaalaman sa mga makabagong pamamaraan at pagkukunan ng sapat na puhunan. Handa na rin ang pamahalaan na ilabas ang mga bakuna laban sa swine fever na magpapalakas sa mga alagang hayop at magbibigay ng garantiya sa mga magsasaka laban sa pagkalugi. Nagsasagawa rin tayo ng mga kaugnay na hakbang upang pababain ang presyo at madagdagan din ang ating supply ng pagkain. Because of compelling emergency reasons such as illegal price manipulations by hoarders and smuggling, we were constrained to temporarily implement mandated price ceilings on rice. We also extended the reduced tariff rates to facilitate the importation of rice, corn, and pork until the end of this year. Ganon din ang sasapitin ng lahat ng mga ipupuslit ng mga bigas. Ang ibang mga produkto naman ay ating sisirain o susunugin, bukod pa sa pagkakakulong sa mga mahuhuling mga salarymen. Soon, we will be implementing the pre-border technical verification and cross-border electronic invoicing of import commodities. This will send a strong message that we mean serious business. To reduce unnecessary business costs, local government units no longer collect fees and charges from motorists transporting goods and merchandise while passing through national roads. On the same principle, LGUs have been strongly urged to refrain from collecting similar fees for the use of local roads. Nagsilbing kaagapay ng taong bayan ang kadiwa sa panahon na mataas ang presyo ng pagkain. Dahil naging epektibo ito, ang mga kadiwa centers ay magpapatuloy pa. Katuwang ang mga lokal na pamahalaan, dinagdagan pa natin ang mga kadiwa sa iba't ibang panig ng bansa. Higit sa lahat, layunin nating gawin permanente rin at mas madalas pa ang pagdaraos ng mga kadiwa. Matapos ngayong taon, ang 1,200 kilometro ng mga farm-to-market roads sa buong bansa. Mahigit 9,300 makinarya ang maipapamahagi at pasilidad na magagawa ngayong taon. Patuloy tayo nagbubukas at nagkukumpuni ng mga irigasyon sa buong Pilipinas. Ngayong taon, bibigyan natin ng patubig ang halos 45,000 ektarya ng bagong lupain. Bubuhayin din natin muli ang irigasyon sa halos 38,000 ektarya ng lupain sa buong bansa. Isa sa mga natatapos na proyekto ay ang Stage 2 ng Malitubog-Maridagaw Irrigation Project. Halos 10,000 ektarya ng lupain sa North Cotabato at sa Maguindanao del Sur ang masiserbisyuhan ng irigasyon na ito. Ang ilan sa mga ginagawa nating irigasyon ngayon ay solar. Ibig sabihin, pinapatakbo ang mga ito ng haring araw, hindi nauubos at hindi nangangailangan ng paggamit ng krudo. Isang halimbawa ay ang kakabukas lamang na Kabaruan Solar-Powered Pump Irrigation Project sa Quirino, Isabela. Samantala, dahil sa Halaur River Multipurpose Project sa Iloilo, halos 32,000 ektarya ng lupain ang mabibigyan ng patubig. Patutunayan ng proyekto sa Halaur River ang pinalalawig na potensyal ng irigasyon. Hindi na lamang patubig sa sakahan ang kaya nitong gawin. Ito na rin ay magagamit sa pagkontrol ng baha, paglikha ng kuryente, at pati na rin para sa turismo. Moving forward, irrigation dams will supplement all our other bulk water projects to ensure water security for our people, especially in the underserved areas. Matindi ang naging epekto ng dumaang El Nino, lalo na sa mga sakahan. Sa tinamong pinsala mula sa pagkasira ng mga pananim, nagkaroon ng proteksyon ang ating mga magsasaka sa pamamagitan ng ating binigay na crop insurance. Sa nakalipas na 2 taon, mahigit 9,000 piso halaga ang naging bayad pinsala para sa mga apektadong magsasaka at mangingisda. Ngunit, mainam na rin na nailunsad na maaga ang mga modernong paraan ng pagtatanim tulad ng low water use farming technologies. Sa ating nasimulan na proyektong Lawa at Binhi, isinasagawa na ang mga modernong imbakan ng tubig upang lalong maging handa at protektado ang ating mga magsasaka sa banta ng tagtuyot. As we can see in all the world, weather events are, as has been predicted, getting more extreme, such as torrential rains that instantly shift to scorching heat waves or vice versa. Our country's geographical location makes us highly vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change. Precisely because of our inherent vulnerability, we are proactive advocates for heightened climate responsibility and justice on the global stage. To this end, we have secured a seat on the board of the Loss and Damage Fund. And further, the Philippines has also been selected as host country to that fund. This will require an enabling law from Congress to confer the legal personality and capacity to the board. This welcome development shall complement all our other climate adaptation and mitigation measures and give us a strong voice to access the needed financial assistance for climate-related initiatives and impacts. Gayunpaman, ang pinakamahalaga ay ang buong bansa ay matibay at laging handa sa nakakapinsalang mga sakuna. Nangunguna ang ating mga DRRM workers upang tiyakin ang ating malawakang paghahanda at ang ating pagiging mulat at listo sa anumang oras. Bilang pangunahing paghahanda, nagtatayo tayo ng mga mahalagang infrastruktura na magsisilbing proteksyon at sentro ng koordinasyon, lalo na sa aspeto ng paghahatid tulong. Within the past 2 years, almost 100 evacuation centers have already been built. While in January of this year, we started the operations of our Disaster Response Command Center, which shall serve as a central hub for the government's disaster response efforts. Ngayon, sa pagpihit ng panahon, ang hagupit ng La Nina at mga matinding pag-ulan naman ang ating binabantayan at pinaghahandaan. Mahigit 5,500 flood control project ang natapos na at marami pang iba ang kasalukuyang ginagawa sa buong bansa. Isa na rito ay ang Flood Risk Management Project sa Cagayan de Oro River na magbibigay ng pangmatagalang proteksyon sa mahigit 600 ektarya ng lupa at 60,000 nating mga kababayan. Isa pa ay ang proyekto sa Pampanga Bay na magsisilbing karagdagang lunas sa mga pagbabaha. Noong Enero, inilunsad natin ang kalinisan sa bagong Pilipinas, kung saan pinakilos natin ang ating mga barangay upang maglinis sa kani-kanilang komunidad. Sa 5 buwan lamang, mahigit 40,000 tonelada ng basura ang nakolekta ng mahigit 22,000 mga barangay sa buong bansa. Inaasahan ko ang tuloy-tuloy na suporta ng mga lokal na pamahalaan sa paglilinis ng ating pamayanan. Bilang halimbawa rin dito sa Maynila, nagsimula na ang malawakang pagtutulungan upang bigyang buhay muli ang Ilog Pasig. As we enter the midterm, our infrastructure development remains sustained, strategic, and on schedule. Aside from agriculture and disaster risk, our other vital sectors and pillars such as education, health, energy, low-cost housing, transport, information technology, they all stand to benefit from our aggressive infrastructure development as befitting our upper middle income economic target. With the results that we have seen 2 years into this administration, we can claim that despite challenges, we are steadily progressing towards our targets in the medium term. Our power and internet services are continuously being upgraded in both capacity and connectivity. Sa ating free Wi-Fi program, halos 10 milyong unique user devices ang nakikinabang sa libreng internet sa mahigit 13,000 lugar sa buong Pilipinas. Nasasagap ito sa marami nating mga paaralan at mga malalayo at liblib na mga po. Patuloy pa ang ating pinaparami ng mga libreng Wi-Fi sa buong bansa. As part of our nationwide internet infrastructure development, Phase 1 of the national fiber backbone has been completed and operationalized. Phase 2 and 3 have already begun early this year and shall be completed by 2026. This fiber backbone will give us sufficient capacity in terms of bandwidth. As of 2022, only 77% or 20.6 million households were connected to the internet. This is much too low. Together with our private sector partners, we will efficiently harness the concept of common towers to provide connectivity to Filipinos who are at the far end of the last mile. Expect full government support to ensure the successful completion of this critical project, including policy reforms and streamlined processes. Bigger and faster IT infrastructures require stronger and more impervious cyber defense. Our recently launched National Cybersecurity Plan lays down the blueprint for us to safeguard our systems against cyber attacks. With this said, I have directed the agencies concerned to ensure that the speed and quality of our IT development always mirrors the pace and trajectory of our economic aspirations. As energy projects get completed and new investments pour into this sector, we expect our nation's power supply to increase at a steady pace to meet our growing demand in the next few years. Nonetheless, we are continuously diagnosing and urgently addressing power shortages, as well as the systemic causes of blackouts in unserved and underserved areas. Nireremedyohan natin ang pangangailangan ng mga lugar na wala pang kuryente at madalas ma-brownout. sa pamamagitan ng microgrid at off-grid systems at mga missionary small power utilities na sinusuportahan pa rin ng solar. Running through Bataan, Pampanga, and Bulacan, the newly inaugurated Mariveles-Hermosa San Jose transmission line will further strengthen the reliability of the Luzon power grid. In the Visayas, all stages of the Cebu-Negros-Panay Backbone Project have likewise been completed. This project shall serve to stabilize the power situation in Western and Central Visayas and avert recurrences of power outages experienced in the past. Dahil sa proyektong ito, naiwasan ang blackout sa Panay Island noong Abril hanggang Hunyo sa kabila ng yellow at red alert sa region. And just last week, the Dumanhog-Corelia line of the Cebu-Bohol Interconnection Project was energized, enabling the transfer of power between Cebu and Bohol. With these systems currently operating at capacity, these major power lines shall contribute to the efficient power exchanges not only between Luzon and the Visayas, but also involving Mindanao. Energy sharing and transfers between, among, and within the three island groups have now been made possible with the energization last January of the Mindanao-Visayas interconnection. The energization of the Mindanao-Visayas interconnection is a defining moment, not only for the power sector, but for the entire country. Finally, we have connected the power grids of all three major island groups. The unified Philippine grid is a fulfillment of this dream, whose seeds were planted in the 80s through a vision bolstered by R&D, which we accomplished by applying typical Filipino persistence and dedication. Batid natin lahat na ang presyo ng kuryente dito sa ating bansa ay mataas. Kaya patuloy tayo sa pagdadagdag ng mga infrastruktura ng kuryente na magpapababa ng presyo ng kalanunan. Sa kabilang banda, tinitiyak din nating makatarungan ang paniningil sa mga consumer. Ilan sa mga hakbang na pinatupad ng pamahalaan ay, una, ang mas maayos at patas na lifeline rate program para sa mga mahihirap, lalo na sa mga benepisyaryo ng 4Ps. Pangalawa, ang naging pangsamantalang pagsuspindi ng fit-all tariff sa ating electric bill. Pangatlo, ang anti-bill shock program. At pang-apat, ang naging pagsuspindi ng wholesale electricity spot market noong panahon na nag-red alert sa Luzon at Visayas grid. At ang panghuli, mga refund at pagpapatanggal ng mga sobrang singil sa consumer tulad ng franchise fee. Binabalikan at binubusisi natin muli ang EPIRA upang malaman kung angkop pa ba ito sa ating kasalukuyang sitwasyon o napapanahon na ito ay amyendahan. Hinihiling ko sa Kongreso na pagtulungan na natin ito alang-alang sa kapakanan ng mga Pilipino. Sa taas ng presyo ng kuryente sa bansa, nahihirapan hindi lamang ang mga negosyante, kung hindi lalo na ang taong bayan. As of May this year, 12,000 kilometers worth of roads and more than 1,200 bridges have been built and upgraded across the country. Of note, we have provided a budget to upgrade 367 bridges and almost 1,600 kilometers of road along our country's longest thoroughfare, the Maharlika Highway from Luzon all the way to Mindanao. Moreover, significant segments of major expressways which are part of the Luzon Spine Expressway network have now been opened to the public. The SILEX, NLEX-SLEX connector and the Plaridel bypass, will be fully completed by the end of this year. Calax and the C5 South Link will be fully operational by next year. Dahil sa mga mahalagang daan na ito, ang norte, gitnang Luzon, Maynila at katimugang Luzon ay lalo pa ngayon magiging mas konektado sa isa't isa. Under our Inter-Island Linkage Bridge Program, we expect 2 major bridges to be open to motorists this year. One is the Panguil Bay Bridge, touted as the longest water-spanning bridge in northern Mindanao. This bridge will connect Lanao del Norte to Misamis Occidental. The other is the Gicam Bridge in Zamboanga, Sibugay, which shall connect the Olutanga the island to the mainland of Mindanao. In addition, travel to and from Clark Airport is now much faster and more convenient, with the inauguration of the 20-kilometer airport New Clark City Access Road in Pampanga. We are also in the midst of a railway renaissance. The Metro Manila Subway Project has logged significant accomplishments in its tunneling works. Sa puntong ito, katumbas na ng 3 hanggang 6 na palapag ang lalim na nahukay at tuloy-tuloy na umuusad sa susunod na istasyon. Other railway projects such as the MRT-7 and the North-South Commuter Railway are likewise progressing. We will make sure that the right-of-way issues are resolved in the most equitable, efficient, and expeditious manner so that these will not get in the way of our infrastructure development. Bilang bahagi ng LRT-1 Cavite Extension Project, ang ruta ng LRT Line 1 sa Metro Manila ay madadagdagan mula sa Baclaran hanggang Sucat. Bubuksan ito sa publiko sa loob ng taong ito. At sa ilang taon, aabot na ang linya na ito hanggang Bacoor. Nagdagdag din tayo ng 76 na bago at modernong mga tren sa LRT-1 upang mas dumami, bumilis at maging mas komportable ang biyahe ng mga pasahero. Kamakailan lamang, binuksan naman natin muli sa publiko ang PNR Bicol Line na may habang 100 kilometro mula Naga hanggang sa Legazpi. Gayon din, patuloy ang pagpaganda ng ating mga paliparan at ang ating mga daungan para sa ikaginahawa ng ating mga manlalakbay. Unang-una na rito ang paliparan ng Maynila. Sa pangangasiwa ng pribadong sektor, inaasahang gaganda ang itsura at serbisyo nito sa mga susunod na taon. Soon, it will be capable of accommodating 48 flights per hour, servicing our ever-increasing local and international flight routes, and catering to more than 62 million passengers every year. More than 70 airports and seaport development projects across the country have now been completed, and another 350 ongoing projects are set to be completed by the year 2028. Notably, the capacities of the passenger terminal buildings of the General Santos Airport and the Bicol International Airport have been expanded by 300 and 500%, now catering to 2,000 and 1,600 passengers respectively. Meanwhile, the Batangas Port PTB, our popular marine gateway to Mimaropa, the Visayas, and to Mindanao, can now accommodate 8,000 travelers at any given time. Thanks to Congress, the public-private partnership as a crucial funding mechanism for big-ticket projects is now institutionalized by the force of law. PPP is seen to facilitate strategic investments and the timely development of projects under our Build Better More program, especially since around 1/4 of our flagship projects have been envisioned to be funded through this modality. As a perfect example, the NAIA PPP will go down in our history, not only as among the largest and fastest approved PPPs, but one that has set the bar in terms of openness, transparency, and competitiveness of the process. Through this partnership, our foremost aerial gateway is now primed for a revitalization. Once considered as among the worst and most stressful airports in the world, it will soon be a world-class international airport that we can all be proud of. But even before that, the UP-PGH Cancer Center is the first PPP to be approved in this administration. Together with the Philippine Cancer Center of the DOH, which broke ground last March, these two specialty hospitals will soon join our nation's fight against cancer. These centers will be a godsend to the more than 400,000 Filipinos who are afflicted with this deadly disease. Habang ang mga modernong ospital na ito ay ginagawa pa, patuloy tayo sa pagdadagdag at pagpapataas ng kalidad ng ating mga ospital at mga specialty center. Binuksan na natin sa publiko ang mahigit 20 bagong urgent care and ambulatory service o mga bukas centers sa iba't ibang lugar sa bansa. Intended to decongest public hospitals, these centers shall provide competent ambulatory care, most especially to the poor and to the disadvantaged, for health conditions that do not require hospital admission. Katuwang din natin ang lokal na pamahalaan sa mga tinatayo natin mga tawag na super health centers. Sa tulong ng mga LGU, malalagyan natin ng sapat na mga doktor at nurse ang mga ito at madadagdagan pa natin sa mga susunod na taon. Layunin natin na sa lalong madaling panahon, lahat ng lalawigan natin ay may sapat na mga center o pasilidad na may kakayahang makapagbigay ng pangunahing serbisyong medikal para sa ating mga mamamayan. Samantala, titiyakin natin na ang bawat isang probinsya ay mabibigyan ng mobile clinic upang ang laboratory exam at ilang pang pangunahing serbisyo medikal ay mapapalapit natin sa ating mga kababayan. Sa PhilHealth naman, dinamihan na ang klase ng generic na gamot na kasama sa benepisyo para sa mga outpatient. Mula sa 21 generic na gamot, ay 53 na. May mga bagong gamot para sa alta presyon at meron na rin para sa nerve pain at sa epileptic seizures. Bilang tugon sa dumaraming insidente at tumataas na presyo ng pagpagamot, itinaas na ng PhilHealth ng mahigit doble ang mga benepisyo para sa mga malulubhang karamdaman tulad ng acute stroke at pulmonya. Ang limit na ngayon para sa mga kondisyon na ito ay itinaas na hanggang 76,000 piso at 70,000 piso. Upang mapaigting pa ang paglaban natin sa cancer, tinaasan ng PhilHealth ng mahigit 1,000% ang benepisyo para sa pagpagamot ng breast cancer. Ang dating limit na 100,000 piso, ngayon ay ginawa na nating 1.4 million pesos. Ang benepisyo naman para sa colon cancer ay pinag-evaluate na rin. At bago matapos ang taon, maisasama na rin sa mga benepisyo ng PhilHealth ang chemotherapy para sa cancer sa baga, atay, ovary at prostate. Naglaan po tayo ng mas mataas na pondo para sa ating medical assistance program. Kaya higit na mas marami pang mga Pilipino ang matutulungan nito ngayong taon. Aside from our aggressive hiring efforts, we have enhanced medical and allied health programs, allocated seed funds for public medical schools, and launched scholarships and review and upskilling programs. These are to support the medical and nursing professions with a goal to strengthen and increase our human resources for health. As part of our recalibrated health approach towards prevention and healthy habits, we are prioritizing vaccinations, nutrition, mental well-being, and active and healthy lifestyles. Tuloy-tuloy ang ating paghahabol sa pagbabakuna ng mga sanggol at ang mga bata, lalo na sa Region 6 at sa BARM, kung saan kulang pa sa kalahati ang nababakunahan. At tuloy na tuloy din ang Philippine Plan of Action for Nutrition na ating binibigyan tuon ngayong Hulyo, buwan ng nutrition. Ang convergent programs to stamp out hunger and malnutrition were not only successfully launched, but have yielded inspiring results thus far. One survey confirmed that our expanding school-based feeding program has had a significant impact on the physical and mental well-being of more than half of the learner beneficiaries. Therefore, we will continue to further enhance these feeding programs in our schools and daycare centers. The recently launched Walang Gutom 2027 will now be fully rolled out from the initial 2,300 households, now all the way to 300,000 food-poor households across the country by the end of this year. But the program will go on until we feed the 1 million most food-poor families by 2027. An important component of our strategies to address malnutrition shall be the program for the first 1,000 days, or the first 2 years of a child's life. To ensure the health and nutrition of children 0 to 2 years old from the poorest families, we have proposed in the 2025 budget a new grant under the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program for this purpose. Sa pamamagitan nito, ang isang buntis o ang isang ina na benepisyaryo ng 4Ps ay mabibigyan ng karagdagang tulong pinansyal na laan para sa kanya at sa kanyang anak. Ang tulong na ito ay upang matiyak na siya at ang sanggol na kanyang sinapupunan o batang anak ay maaasikaso ng doktor, mababakunahan at mabibigyan ng sapat na nutrisyon. Closely related to these, the DOST has been continuously undertaking scientific research to develop nutritious food and drinks which can be integrated into the government's feeding program. Government is aware benefit package for all its members. At the same time, grassroots and sports for all programs are back in the mainstream, catering to Filipinos of all ages. Nailunsad na namang muli ang taunang palarong pambansa matapos ang 3 taon na pagkakatigil nito dahil sa pandemya. Binabati natin ang Marikina at Cebu at ang kagawaran ng edukasyon sa kanilang matagumpay na pagtatanghal ng mga palarong ito. We will continue to support these health-enhancing sports programs. Through these, we will also set forth our youth on the same well-established path that has taken some of our national champions and renowned athletes to sporting greatness. As we speak, 28 of our finest athletes are competing in Paris now for the glory of the Philippines. Let us wish them well and the best of luck. Sa larangan naman ng edukasyon, investing in our own people is not only a fundamental moral imperative for us, but an economic one as well. In its report, the World Bank revealed that our promising economic growth is largely attributable to our people. The great bulk of the country's wealth is being created by the skill, the industry, and the resourcefulness of all Filipinos. Ngunit, sadyang marami pang ibubuga ang Pinoy. We must harness the totality of the Filipinos' potential. Thus, for consecutive years, we have prioritized an increase in budget for the inclusive development of Filipinos, not just in food, nutrition, and health, but even more so in education and training. Recent assessments have revealed The poor reality that more than half of our grades 6, 10, and 12 students have failed to reach the ideal proficiency levels, faring low in information literacy, problem solving, and critical thinking skills. Therefore, our national recovery program must proceed without the slightest disruption, especially in basic education. Our system of education must be strategically calibrated to make sure that our youth are not only taught to become literate, but it has also consciously developed them into problem solvers and into critical thinkers, hungry for success, ready for the future. Similarly, as we relentlessly address the classroom gap, the digital gap must also be bridged with equal intensity. We are working towards the day when all students will be equipped with computers, smart TVs, essential programs, digital books, and once again, access to reliable power and the internet. Digitalization and solar-powered electricity must now become the standard features in our schools and in our classrooms. Simply put, this is educational reform through technology. The perennial problems surrounding textbooks shall be resolved. The production of instructional materials, especially textbooks, which are up-to-date and error-free, must be ensured. The whole process, from approval of manuscript to procurement, all the way to distribution, will be cut short from its present 3 years to just 1 year. Ito ngayon ang magiging hamon sa ating bagong kalihim, na tiyakin ang pagbangon at pagtaas ng kalidad ng edukasyon sa bansa sa lalong madaling panahon. Clearly, of course, the quality of our education rests on the quality of our teachers. Every classroom that we build will be but an empty and lifeless structure without its moving force, the teacher. But our teachers are not just perfunctory figures in our schools. They are the very foundation of our educational system. And so, as we build and upgrade schools, so too must we uplift and upskill our teachers, whose competence and trademark Filipino patience, determination, and compassion will be at the core of our national learning recovery. Dinagdagan natin ang mga empleyado ng hahalili sa mga guro upang magampanan ang mga sari-saring gawain sa paaralan. Sa gayon, ang ating mga guro ay makakatutok ng mabuti sa kanilang propesyon na pagtuturo. Katuwang ang Kongreso na isabatas na ang Kabalikat sa Pagtuturo Act. Ito'y magbibigay sa mga guro ng nasa pampublikong paaralan ng taunang teaching allowance para pambili ng mga kagamitan sa pagtuturo at mga kaugnay na gastusin. Matatanggap na nila ito simula sa susunod na taon. Meron na rin silang personal accident insurance mula sa GSIS. Makakapaghatid din ng dagdag na ginhawa ang Special Hardship Allowance para sa mga karagdagang public school teacher na masasaklaw nito na nakakaranas ng matinding hirap at panganib sa kanilang araw-araw na pagtatrabaho. At wala na ring utang taging sa mga teacher. Hindi magiging hadlang ang kanilang pagkakautang upang makapag-renew ng kanilang mga lisensya. Bagkus, marapat lamang na sila ay payagan pa rin makapagturo nang sila ay makapaghanap buhay at merong kinikita. Of equal significance, we have allocated funds to finally implement the expanded career progression system for our public school teachers. This will promote professional development and career advancement within their ranks. This expanded system lays out two major career paths for our teachers to pursue: the teaching and the school administration tracks, each of which shall have ample career growth opportunities. With this system in place, we will accelerate the career growth of teachers. Sa sistemang ito, wala nang public school teacher ang magre-retire na teacher 1 lamang. Sa madaling sabi, kung talagang ninanais nating maging matagumpay ang hinahangad nating pagbangon sa larangan ng edukasyon, sila, ang ating mga guro, ang dapat nating itaguyod at patatagin. Last year, we reported that our system of higher education was gaining international recognition for all the right reasons. As further evidence, 87 of our higher educational institutions have now made it into various world university rankings. 51 of them are public universities or colleges. Also, we witnessed this past school year a significant rise in the enrollment rate in higher education, both in public and in private institutions. The same upward trend is likewise noted in technical vocational education and training, or TVET. Statistics do not lie. 8 out of 10 graduates of TVET ultimately land decent jobs. So with its high employability rate, TVET will definitely be instrumental in capacitating our people and in maintaining our employment rate at consistently high levels. Cognizant of its potential, the DepEd, CHED, DOLE, and TESDA have joined forces now to incorporate TVET in the senior high school curriculum to further boost the employability of our students. The Philippinovation and Balikhaing Pinoy programs have been launched, both drawing vast interest and inspiring key sectors and the public to generate solutions, to share ideas, and to drive innovation forward across the country. The IT and creative sectors are burgeoning industries, knowing no territorial bounds, and they hold great promise for our talented and hardworking people. This is the call of our times, and we are moving to answer that call. The schools will serve as the preeminent incubators of the innovative and creative energies of all Filipinos. Advanced learning systems and technologies in the areas of robotics, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things shall be made available in TVET Innovation Centers nationwide. Highly technical and professional level training courses will soon be launched, notably in cybersecurity and in the creative industries. Of our globally ranked HEIs, 63 have made it into the WURI Global Top 300 Innovative Universities. In the face of tough global competition, the Mabalacat City College in Pampanga was awarded the Technological or Digital Innovation of the Year. And for the second straight year, Samar State University topped the rankings for its digitally pioneering R&D project entries. Relevant scholarships and R&D grants will continue to be available, aligned with our agenda to foster startups. To commercialize and mass-produce R&D outputs, crucial support such as intellectual property rights enforcement and venture financing have been put into place. We are also building essential infrastructure and linkages to support the ethical development of artificial intelligence systems for high-impact practical applications. Since the nation's foray into space technology, our satellites in space have generated more than 51,000 maps, images, and spaceborne data for various purposes. These now provide us with vital information that guides our country's stratagems and decision-making in agricultural development, urban planning, and environmental management, including the strengthening of our maritime domain awareness, to name but a few examples. Along with these discoveries, we are likewise all of our countrymen who have carved out their niche as pioneering space scientists and engineers in this emergent field, in collaboration with local space technology companies that provide an additional impetus. As we speak, 16 of our space engineers are in the United Kingdom resuming work on the development of the Multispectral Unit for Land Assessment, or the MULA satellite. Once completed, the MULA satellite will be our largest Earth observation satellite to be launched into space so far. May they inspire the next generation of Filipino students to follow their footsteps and reach for the stars. Sa ating mga trabahador, our employment rate has increased to 95.9%. We also saw a significant increase in high-quality jobs. Underemployment, too, has decreased from 11.7% in May of 2023 to 9.9% today. This is our lowest number since 2005. Notably, we also saw an increase in middle-skilled employment, wage and salaried employment, and full-time jobs. Magagandang balita pa rin ang mga ito sa kabila ng nararanasang mataas na presyo ng pagkain. Bukod sa paglikha ng trabaho, pinalalakas din natin ang kakayahan ng ating mga mamamayan, lalo na sa panahon ng kanilang kagipitan. Our adaptive and responsive social protection programs assist our countrymen in times of dire need, reaching those in geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas. More importantly, these programs seek to develop their productive potential and bridge their capacities towards self-sufficiency. With a noble aim of breaking the cycle of poverty across the country, the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program has not only consistently accomplished its annual targets, it has also proven its efficacy over the years. Mula nung nakaraang SONA, mahigit 420,000 pamilya ang nag-graduate sa programa. Ibig sabihin, sa tulong ng 4Ps, mas gumanda na ang kanilang kalagayan at kakayahang makipagsapalaran sa laban ng buhay. Sa katunayan, mahigit 4,000 graduate ng 4Ps ay nasa hanay na ngayon ng mga lisensyadong guro. At hindi lamang yun, 35 sa mga top-notcher ng sari-saring mga board exam na idinaos nitong nakalipas na 2 taon ay nagmula sa mga pamilya na benepisyaryo ng 4Ps. Ilan sa kanila ay si Teacher Kane Jevy Cervantes ng Davao Oriental na nakakuha ng number 1 sa licensure examination for professional teachers. Isa rin si Engineer Alexis Alegado na nanguna sa Civil Engineering Board exam noong Abril ng nakalipas na taon. Tomorrow, the birth date of Bilyonaryo Mabini, we cap off the National Disability Rights Week. Our PWDs can rest assured of government's effective implementation of beneficial policies and programs that will guarantee equitable opportunities, special interventions, and incentives for them. Mula nang pumasok ang administrasyong ito, nagsimula na ang mga programang pangkabuhayan na nakalaan para sa ating mga PWD. Sa susunod na taon, ilulunsad naman ng PhilHealth ang benepisyo nito para sa mga batang may kapansanan. Halos dinoble na rin ang diskwento na ibinibigay sa mga PWD at sa mga senior citizen na tulad ninyo para sa mga basic necessities at prime commodities. Natuwa kayong lahat doon. Sa lahat ng mga ginagawa natin ito, katuwang natin palagi ang pribadong sektor, lalo na sa mahalagang bagay ng trabaho at pasahod. With tripartite consensus, minimum wage levels have been increased in various sectors in all regions, including the BARM, for workers and private establishments. Makakapagdulot ito ng ginhawa sa mahigit 4 na milyong mga kababayan na natin at ng kanilang mga pamilya. Para naman sa ating mga kawani ng gobyerno, mayroon silang maaasahang medical allowance bilang karagdagang benepisyo sa susunod na taon. At hindi lamang iyon, meron ding napipintong aumento sa sweldo na makukuha nila sa 4 na tranche. Naglaan na po tayo ng pondo para dito simula sa taong ito at sa mga susunod na taon. Furthermore, we have extended the services of our job order and contract of service personnel working in government. This will also afford them ample opportunity to work on their civil service eligibilities while gaining additional relevant experience and training to upgrade their employment qualifications. Our aggressive infrastructure development, business-friendly policies, investment and export promotions, foreign visits, and economic missions are all aimed at generating not just jobs, but quality and competitive jobs. A substantial number of investment pledges have already commenced operations, with many more at various stages of development. Sa bilang natin, bukod sa malalaking kita para sa bansa, makakalikha ang mga ito ng mahigit 200,000 at 2,000 trabaho para sa ating mga kababayan. The rationalized incentive scheme under the CREATE Act has also made possible the generation of investments amounting to more than 1 trillion pesos and more than 100,000 new jobs. This promising state of affairs is now beckoning us to create more through the passage of the Create More Act. Conscious efforts to improve the ease of doing business and delivering government services through digitalization, integration, and streamlining of processes have produced their intended multiplier effects. Cost savings from operations have translated to higher revenues and to more speedy transactions. These have effectively addressed the fragmented, overlapping, and time-consuming procedures that have hindered optimal productivity by government. Attributable to these transformative reforms, government services are becoming more efficient. More and more systems are now digital and cashless, assimilating individuals, MSMEs, even agricultural workers. These have expedited transactions and commercial exchanges and promoted the convenience of all parties concerned. Ang Paling QR ay isa sa mga programang unti-unting lumalakas, ang hatak sa publiko at dumarami ang gumagamit. Bolstering our Cybercrime Prevention Act, the recently passed Anti-Financial Account Scamming Act will further protect the public by heightening the responsibility and security systems of banks and financial institutions and imposing high criminal liabilities on social engineering schemes and money mules. Job placement also has seen significant progress, especially through our Public Employment Service Offices, or PESOs, nationwide. PESOs have harnessed IT capabilities and improved labor-industry coordination. Collectively, they boast a job placement success rate of 98%. Likewise, due to shortened timelines, we have recorded a significant increase in new business and corporate registrations, including foreign firms, which surpassed last year's numbers. The observed choke points in our food supply chains and in the logistics sectors are now being removed. And at the same time, the identified gaps are being filled in to make them efficient, integrated, and seamless, saving precious time and cost. Energy Projects is moving towards complete virtual integration of its required procedures. The expedited processing of our infrastructure flagship projects under the Build Better More program shall also follow suit. Our digital infrastructure was substantially strengthened, courtesy more than tripled since last year, owing to limiting requirements. Air transport and tourism have been made more convenient because of the shift to paperless immigration and customs forms, thanks to the e-travel system. And soon, the piloted e-gates will be standard fixtures at airports to further facilitate ease of mobility during departures and arrivals. And with all this said, the implementation of the Philippine e-visa will be next in our digital transformation agenda. Let us now go to tourism, because we in the Philippines have no less than 7,641 beautiful reasons to tap the potential of our tourism sector, for which our archipelagic nation is internationally renowned and from which many Filipinos derive their livelihood. While a resurgence in this all-important sector is being observed, pre-pandemic data present to us a great challenge that we must surpass. It is a challenge that is well within our grasp. Our infrastructure and digital reforms to development of tourism sites and the enhancement of the overall tourist experience are all calculated to boost the productivity of the tourism sector. While doing so, we shall interpose the wholesome and hospitable Filipino brand in all the key tourism touchpoints, from tourist arrival all the way to departure. But the tourism challenge has already evolved and now requires a multifaceted strategy. The focus now is on experiential tourism. Food, culture, heritage, the arts, education, halal, Islamic traditions, dive, cruise, farm and ecotourism, even sports, have now become potent subjects and products of a nation's tourism. This is an imperative, and that we must elevate and expand our understanding of the one town, one product, or OTOP concept. It must not inhibit, but rather it must inspire. We must not rest content to have just one. Rather, we must seek the optimal number of high-quality products and services which at the same time showcase our community's distinctive history, traditions, and talents. Filipino creativity and ingenuity will enliven and unlock the as yet untapped potential of these new facets of Philippine tourism. Sa ating mga OFW, ayon sa datos ng Bangko Sentral, mahigit 37 bilyong dolyar ang naipasok sa bansa ng ating mga OFW noong nakalipas na taon. Sadyang napakalaking tulong nito sa ating bumabangon na ekonomiya. Kaya hindi lamang pasasalamat, kundi parangal ang ating ipinapaabot sa lahat ng ating mga OFW. Sana ay napapanood nila ito. Ramdam na ramdam hanggang dito sa ating bansa ang inyong sakripisyo. Through vital partnerships with like-minded states, we have been able to promote our mutual interests, resulting not only in investments here and our strengthened national security, but also in quality jobs for our nationals seeking foreign employment. Through intense Philippine lobbying, the United Nations has adopted the resolution on promoting and protecting the enjoyment of human rights of seafarers. This will ensure their safe and decent living and working conditions at sea, a human rights imperative. Patuloy ang ating pagtulong sa mga OFW. Hindi ito natatapos sa kanilang paglisan sa bansa. Karagdagang mga espesyal na pasilidad at serbisyo ang ating binuksan para sa kanila, tulad ng OFW Lounge sa NAIA at Seafarers Hub sa Maynila. Ang mga OFW natin na naapektuhan ng sari-saring mga kaguluhan tulad sa Israel, sa Gaza, sa Sudan, Lebanon at Yemen ay natulungan natin at naiuwi ng ligtas sa bansa. Gayon din ang naging pagtulong natin sa mga kababayan nating nasalanta ng kalamidad at krisis tulad sa Taiwan at sa New Zealand. Hanggang sa kanilang pag-uwi, buong puso ang ating pagtanggap at paglingap. Ang nagbabalik-bayang mga OFW kasama ng kanilang pamilya ay sinusuportahan nating mabuti upang maging maayos ang kanilang bagong simula dito sa bansa para makakuha ng magandang trabaho o di kaya'y makapagtayo ng negosyo. Kaugnay sa aking naiulat noong isang taon, sinimulan na ng Saudi Arabia ang pamimigay ng tseke sa ating mga trabahanteng nawalan ng trabaho doon. Unti-unti, ang ating mga naapektuhang OFW ay nababayaran na. For this, we convey our sincerest gratitude to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Lessons from history and current events teach us that peace and order is an essential ingredient of genuine prosperity and social development. This is the path that we choose to take. Despite difficulties, despite our diversity and differences as a people, we are joined together by a unique history and have constantly invested our energies and resources in strengthening the pillars of peace. Our police, military, and Coast Guard undergo continuous capacity building and asset upgrading so that they are better able to preserve the peace and defend our territory. We have noted an overall decrease in crime rate and an improvement in crime solution efficiency. But this is not enough. This is not enough. Our law enforcement need to continue to earn the trust of our people. The strong pillars of our criminal justice system, especially in light of the new rules on criminal investigation and our independent judiciary, function in unison. In tandem with the justice system, COA's audit mechanism works in harmony with our transparency, streamlining, and open government initiatives. All in all, these successfully foster a culture of accountability that curbs corruption in government. With the newly enacted Republic Act number 12009 that I signed just last Saturday, government procurement will be modern and innovative, more streamlined and efficient, and truly at par with global best practices. We sincerely thank Congress for its timely and decisive action in amending the 20-year-old law. We have come a long way in our quest for a lasting and inclusive peace. No guerrilla fronts remain active across our country today. Only 7 weakened groups remain to be dismantled, and they are the subject of focused operations. But along with the assertion of government might, we also offer peace, community development, and reintegration programs for those who have returned to the fold of the law. Through a comprehensive and transformative approach, we have rebuilt not only lives, but also conflict-affected communities. The implementation of peace agreements is now in its concluding phase. Former combatants now live peaceful and productive lives in their respective communities. Some of our former rebels are now absorbed into the AFP, serving in the defense of the Republic, while others are now part of the PNP BARM. Government will honor and fully comply with its remaining deliverables and commitments under these agreements. In November last year, we signed proclamations granting amnesty to former rebels. A month later, and then in June of this year, the House of Representatives and the Senate issued their respective resolutions concurring with these amnesty proclamations. That Congress is one with us is a testament to the whole nation's sincere desire for peace. In such a short period, the BARM has impressively established a strong foundation for its progressive, autonomous social development. Investments continue to pour into the BARM. Last year, investments in the region increased by 140% year on year. The improved peace and order situation, good governance, not to mention high hopes and confidence amongst its people, all contribute to the reasons why BARM's poverty index has significantly decreased since 2018. In Marawi, the rehabilitation and rebuilding continue under the supervision now of the Office of the President. Our focus remains on restoring energy, water, and livable communities. As of today, all 7 intergovernmental mechanisms of the BARM, as mandated under the organic law, have been organized and activated. These will guarantee effective and constant consultation between the Bangsamoro and national governments in the fundamental aspects of governance. 5 out of the 7 essential laws for the BARM have already been enacted by the BTA Parliament. Now it has its own administrative code. It has its own local government code, its own election code, and those for education and the civil service as well. So with these inspiring developments, the BARM appears primed and ready for its regular elections, the first ones that they will have in the coming year. On the fight against dangerous drugs, our bloodless war on dangerous drugs adheres and will continue to adhere to the established 8 E's of an effective anti-illegal drug strategy. Extermination was never one of them. And yet, in more than 71,500 operations, it has resulted in the seizure of more than 44 billion pesos worth of illegal drugs and the arrest of more than 97,000 drug personalities. More than 6,000 of those arrested were high-value targets. 440 of them were government employees, of whom 42 were uniformed personnel. 77 were elected officials. So to further paralyze their operations, dirty money and assets worth more than 500 million pesos have been frozen and preserved. With strong case buildup and efficient prosecution, the drug conviction rate is at a high of 79%. With this, we welcome the report that the number of drug-affected barangays in our country has been reduced by 32%. In our international relations, we have faced challenges to our territorial sovereignty, and we will assert our rights and interests in the same fair and pacific way that we have always done. Proper diplomatic channels and mechanisms under the rules-based international order remain the only acceptable means of settling disputes. Peace and community building will always be our clarion call, especially when the country serves as chair and the host of ASEAN Summit in 2026. We continuously try to find ways to de-escalate tensions in contested areas with our counterparts without compromising our position and our principles. I know that our neighbors too are doing their best to make this work. The Philippines cannot yield. The Philippines cannot waver. We are now more conscious as a people and strategic in heightening our aerial and maritime domain awareness. We are continuing to strengthen our defensive posture, both through developing self-reliance and through partnerships with like-minded states. Ang West Philippine Sea ay hindi katang-isip natin lamang. Ito ay atin. Ito ay At ito ay mananatiling atin hanggat nag-aalab ang diwa ng ating minamahal na bansang Pilipinas. Pagtitibayin at palalaguin natin ang kamalayan at kaalaman ng buong bansa at titiyakin na maipapasa natin ito sa kabataan at ating susunod na mga salinlahi. Laws on our maritime zones and archipelagic sea lanes make sure that this intergenerational mandate, this duty, will firmly take root in the hearts and minds of all our people. Sa buong sandatang lakas, sa Coast Guard, sa ating mga mangingisda sa West Philippine Sea, tagapin po ninyo ang taus-pusong pasasalamat ng buong bansa dahil sa inyong ginagawang pagmamatyag at sakripisyo. Let us now turn to our economic status and our prospects. In spite of headwinds that we have faced, we have stayed the course. The country exhibits healthy signs of post-pandemic resilience comparable to strong economies in our region. Our poverty rate has significantly dropped to 15.5%, down from 18% in 2021. This present figure is even lower than the pre-pandemic level of 16.7% in 2018. Ang katumbas nito ay halos 2.5 milyong Pilipino ang naiangat natin mula sa kahirapan. Kasabay nito, nabawasan ng lagpas 1,700,000 ang bilang ng mga Pilipinong walang sapat na pambili ng pagkain. Patuloy natin pagsisikapan na marami pa tayong maiaahon mula sa kahirapan. To sustain the country's economic gains, we are promoting investment-led growth. We have set in motion policies and programs to create an environment conducive for business to thrive, like reforms in the capital markets and implementation of green lanes. As a result, we have green lanes certified, around 100 projects with a total investment of about 3 trillion pesos across the sectors of renewable energy, digital infrastructure, food security, and manufacturing. The Philippine financial system remains robust and resilient. Tax and non-tax revenue collection has also become more efficient in pace with our rejuvenated economy. Notably, for the past 2 years, our GOCCs have remitted dividends to the national government with a combined tally exceeding their contributions in 2022. To build on these, and guided by strong fiscal discipline, our proposed government budget for this year was crafted with utmost care, diligence, and meticulous attention. We look to the cooperation of our colleagues in the legislature, not only that our proposed national budget be approved in your usual timely manner, but it be adhered to as closely as possible. We expect all agencies to ensure that every centavo allocated will be judiciously spent for our urgent priorities and socially impactful programs. Mga kababayan, sa lahat ng ginagawa natin ito at mga gagawin pa, mataas ang aking kumpiyansa na malalampasan din natin ang hamon ng ating pinagdadaanan. Dahil ito ang pangunahing hinaing ng taong bayan. Hindi tayo titigil sa paglalaban sa kahirapan at sa paghahanap ng lunas upang maibalik sa normal ang presyo ng bilihin, lalo na ang bigas. At ngayon po, naririnig po namin ang malakas na sigaw ng taong bayan laban sa mga pogo. Disguising as legitimate entities, their operations have ventured into illicit areas furthest from gaming, such as financial scamming, money laundering, prostitution, human trafficking, kidnapping, brutal torture, even murder. The grave abuse and disrespect to our system of laws must stop. Kailangan nang itigil ang panggulo nito sa ating lipunan at paglalapastangan sa ating bansa. Effective today, all pogos are banned. I hereby instruct to wind down and cease the operations of POGOs by the end of the year. In coordination with our economic managers, shall use the time between now and then to find new jobs for our countrymen who will be displaced. This will solve many of the problems that we are encountering. It will solve many of the problems that we have been encountering, but it will not solve all of them. To solve all the problems that we have been suffering under, all officials, law enforcers, workers in government, and most of all, the citizenry, must always be vigilant, principled, and think of the health of the nation. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me end by recalling the words of a great man. Let not anyone pacify his conscience by the delusion that he can do no harm if he takes no part and forms no opinion. Bad men need nothing more to compass their ends than that good men should look on and do nothing. He is not a good man. He is not a good man who, without a protest, allows wrong to be committed in his name. Mga minamahal kong kababayan, lagi po nating labanan ang mali at ang masama. Lagi po nating ipaglaban ang tama at ang mabuti. Lagi po nating mahalin ang Pilipinas. Lagi po nating mahalin ang Pilipino. Mabuhay po kayo at mabuhay ang bagong Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po.
On the part of the Senate, the joint session is hereby adjourned.
On the part of the House of Representatives, the joint session is adjourned.
At 5:27 p.m., 1 hour and 21 minutes long, President Marcos concluded his speech. His speech being a report of his administration's achievements in past year and setting the policy for the next. Some of the priority projects President Marcos highlighted are infrastructure projects for agriculture, transport, power, and communication. Joining me and Edwin for his reaction to the SONA is former Senate President Tito Soto. Good evening, Senator Tito.
Good evening. Good evening, Secretary Edwin. Good evening, Attorney Karen.
It's
Good evening to one and all.
It's really wonderful for you to join us here, SP Tito.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. You can just call me Tito or Tito Sen.
Tito Sen, yes. So I think we'll start with how the speech ended, which I think goes into 2 points during the State of the Nation address that drew the most reaction from the crowd. And I would say, Edwin, based on my observation, number one, it was the President's statements on the West Philippine Sea when the crowd stood up and gave a standing ovation. And then second was his statement on an absolute ban on pogos. What is your take on this, Tito Sen?
You're absolutely right. Those were the two highlights, we could say. But there were plenty of highlights. It depends on what sector are you from and if your sector was addressed. I think that's how it is. But as a whole, I would say that the SONA of the President is a very powerful SONA. The expectations of some quarters were seen or heard. And then, of course, it's the SONA of the President. There are information and figures that are only available to him. So unless there are other figures that can come out to say that, or to say that the figures are wrong, then the nation will have to accept that. The good thing about what was mentioned is that I noticed that there were good highlights at the start, but the impact was really towards the end. He made sure that the West Philippine Sea was mentioned at about the time when I've been there before. So, been there, done that, sabi nga. Ano? When the legislators start to become restless, or that's when he came up with the West Philippine Sea. And then towards the end, the highlight was the ban on pogos, which was expected by some quarters, but unexpected by some too.
That's true, especially.
But did you expect, Tito Sen, that he would have said something about pogo? And number one, do you agree, for instance, as a former Senate President who did a lot of policy making, do you believe that it was a good move to ban pogo?
I think so. I agree. It has come to a point where it can no longer be tolerated because of the impact that it has, or it is having in the country. Of course, the gambling is not at all. No, the offshore gaming is in China.
Right.
The bettors are in China. It doesn't really affect the Filipino.
Right.
But the things that happen, or the issues that surround their presence in the country, that is intolerable.
I remember during the time of President Duterte, Xi Jinping asked him to ban pogo, and he said no. But that would also, in a sense, to a large degree, that would also something that China would be welcome to, and it's something might be augur positively to the relations between the president with the Philippines, because
True.
it's something that Xi Jinping really wanted to be banned. Like you said,
True.
it was affecting the mainland Chinese. So hopefully, do you think it will also improve the relations with China? Because it's the one thing that President Xi Jinping has asked our government to take measures, to remedy.
I concur. Although it sounds like it's from left field.
Right,
no?
right.
But again, it somehow has a connection to the West Philippine Sea issue. Baka matuwa yung China eh.
Correct.
Because they have been seeking the ban of pogos in the Philippines.
But Tito Sen, I'm going to ask you as a former Senate President, the statement of President Marcos saying that I'm announcing a complete ban on all pogos is a very strong statement that, you know, talks about something that can only be done through legislation. So as president, where you have the separation of powers, where the president can't really dictate on Congress as to what laws they will pass, what do you make of this statement? Do you think that he already had prior communications with the leadership in Senate and in Congress about passing a law completely banning all types of pogos?
Although you're right that it must have a congressional action, you know? But then again, the PAGCOR is under the president, and the PAGCOR is the one that gives the license. So if the president said earlier that starting today, pogos are banned, all PAGCOR has to do without the need for a congressional action is to revoke all licenses given. Therefore, any pogo operating, whether licensed before or not, as of today or as of tonight, will all be illegal.
That's interesting because
it's interesting to know.
That's interesting because one, I suppose there can be a challenge as to the validity of that executive action when you have still a law that does not make it illegal. But second, PAGCOR Chairman Altenco recently, when he was asked about what is your take on a complete ban of pogos, was trying to distinguish legal pogos from illegal pogos.
Well, the president did not, the way I heard it from him, the president did not distinguish between legal or illegal. He says, pogo, if I were the chairman of PAGCOR, I will revoke all the licenses tonight from all pogos that were given a license. Now, if I recall, when we passed the law, I was part of the Congress that passed the law taxing pogos. The reason was because we knew that they should be paying taxes to the government, but we just could not really find out how much was being paid, how much was being used. That was the problem then. But because of the total ban now, everything will be moot in academic.
And you don't think there's any negative impact on employment, real estate? Like, I think the recent numbers were that they make up about 10% of occupancy rates for the whole country.
Oo nga eh, yung retail, perhaps, real estate, real properties, yes, they have bought a lot of real properties, or at least rented, no?
It's interesting to note, Tita Sen, when you said na from the left field itong the pogo, that the two most applauded statements of the president referred to China. One was Philippine Sea, was on, we're standing on our own, our land is, this is ours. The second one is on pogo, which will benefit China because you're taking out one form of gambling in China, mainland China. So it's very, very interesting that the president focused, wittingly or unwittingly, it is a nice gesture, take it or leave it, whether China will agree or disagree with either statements made by the president. Definitely, I think he will benefit, he will applaud, China will applaud the banning of pogos.
Oh, as far as the issue of the West Philippine Sea is concerned, I was very glad that he mentioned the Maritime Zones Act.
Right.
I filed a Maritime Zones Act before I left Congress in the 18th Congress. I know that it is part of their priority now in the 19th Congress. So hopefully that action would be honored by everyone, especially China. If they had their own 9-dash line, we must be able to come up with our own maritime zones. And we should not leave it to the figures given by UNCLOS. It should not be left to that. We should have and command our own maritime zones. That is the reason I filed the law last
Tita Sen,
time.
I have, before a SONA always, you're asked there, or at least during our time, in every administration, they're asked, ano ba ang pwedeng ilagay sa SONA. In this case, after hearing the SONA, what are the parts do you think na the President could have mentioned, if anything comes to your mind?
I think he was able to cover most of what people expected and what was happening and what he plans to do, like agriculture, economy, the infrastructure, peace and order, tourism, health. Although, in my opinion, there is a little more to be desired as far as health is concerned.
Right.
In the past year, okay, the figures given by the President are there. Unless you have other figures, we will have to accept that. But then again, I heard that Congress dealt with, I think, 89 billion from the sources or the savings of PhilHealth. I don't think that's a very good action. So when the President said, he said something like, the executive department should act judiciously in spending the budget for 2025, he will be presenting. I think it should also have been directed to the Congress. To Congress,
Yes.
Dapat mag-ingat because I've had experiences before na medyo hindi na kailangan nailagay. That if you will recall, there was a time when I was Senate President and the Speaker was Speaker GMA, and after BICAM of the budget, after ratification by both houses, when they were printing, there was the additional 75 billion out of nowhere.
That's a huge
Coming
amount.
into the, of course, that's the reason I didn't want to sign it. I did not sign it. The budget was going to be reenacted already in the following year because I did not want to sign until I discussed it with my colleagues, Senator Lacson, Senator Drilon, and the agreement, the suggestion was that the only time I will sign it is if the President guarantees that he will veto those excesses.
Right.
And President Duterte, through Secretary Bingbong Medaldia, gave me the assurance, and so I signed it. That's why it's the only budget that you will find in the history of the Philippines that the Senate President has an annotation in the budget which says that this and that attached should be vetoed.
Oh, that's good.
And he did, the President can line veto, and he did that. So again, I'm glad he mentioned about the executive department being judiciously spend every centavo. That's good, but it should also be addressed to Congress.
Karen, I have a question for Tito Sen, and this is in regard to your personal advocacy of the fight against drugs. Medyo pumatik yata si Presidente when he mentioned that our drug war, extermination is not a policy. Anong tingin niyo doon?
Yeah, well, I agree. Siguro lang, he was not able to mention already that there must be prevention and rehabilitation. It's not all enforcement.
Right.
It's not all prosecution. Even if you enforce all the laws on dangerous drugs and prosecute all those behind it, if there are users,
correct,
if there are drug dependents, they will find other types of substances and drugs to abuse. Therefore, there must be also a perhaps they were not able to mention it or include it in their. That could have been the tiny lacking portion of
Or
that.
perhaps they don't have data on, or it's not part of their existing programs that has accomplishments to report for this SONA.
Well, then that is the problem of the Dangerous Drugs Board and the Department of Health.
Yes.
That is something that they should look into. So yes, it is all roses, but there are, of course, some little kinks.
Yes. Or
in
maybe,
some of
Edwin,
the
are you
issues.
implying may
I'm
konting
glad Secretary
patama
Lacier
sa previous president?
That's my sense.
Glad
That's
you
my
mentioned
sense.
that.
Because clearly the previous administration was really for, you know, there was a number of, so many numbers of were killed during the drug war. So it was very pronounced. That's why maybe Tito Sen, he didn't emphasize on the rehab because he wanted to emphasize on the prosecution side and maybe not on the extermination side.
We will give it to that. We give it to that, the thinking that perhaps, you know, that was more important. That was what mentioned.
Yeah. I would like to bring up that judicious use of funds, because in the past State of the Nation address, there was also a call for passing the law on the Maharlika Fund. And I was hoping to hear from this third State of the Nation address some report on how that is being implemented. And I didn't really hear much about that. What is your take on this, Tito Sen? This is something that was left out.
I will be talking off my hat if I do react, no? Because I'm not familiar what went behind the Maharlika Fund.
Exactly.
Therefore, the fact that he did not mention it, maybe it is being suspended, reviewed, I don't know.
But it is being implemented. They constituted a board, and I've been hearing some potential projects where the Maharlika Fund would also allocate money, and I think there are some government agencies or GOCCs where part of their funds are being discussed as potentially also feeding into the Maharlika Fund. But yeah, I was very curious about that, considering it was one of the highlights in the second SONA, and there was no report about any of the progress of that in this third SONA. But for you, Tito Sen, was there anything else that you felt that was left out that could have been mentioned in this third SONA?
I think the issue on customs and tax collection, there could have been more highlights about it, perhaps. And the Maharlika Fund, maybe, you know, they decided to leave it out. It was not as important as the other issues that the
In
president
terms of food
mentioned.
security, Tito Sen, do you think we have done enough to ensure that we provide our food security is stable and we're able to alleviate the high prices on, for instance, our agricultural products?
Funding is the issue.
Funding of the departments?
Funding, the whole thing.
Okay.
Whether it's the defense, whether it's agriculture, it's funding. I think there should be it should be prioritized.
Well, I noticed that a lot of time was spent on agriculture in this SONA. It made up, like, I think more than 1/4 of the SONA. He started with agriculture and gave out a lot of the initiatives that they have. But I guess my question is, based on everything that the president said, do you feel that it had substance?
On agriculture
Agriculture,
itself?
yes. On, like, did they have really initiatives that you feel were coming from this specific administration and not just rehashing things that were done by prior administrations, like something that's more innovative or really called for in terms of addressing food security and inflation?
I agree. Yes. The answer is yes, because aside from the fact that he spent a lot of time on that, he tried to explain what went on last year and what their programs would be for this year. And the thing is, I expected it because it is the same program of his father.
Right.
Agriculture, economy, and infrastructure. Agriculture was number one as far as Ferdinand.
But it seems
President
like
Marcos
it's
is concerned.
contrary to the policy of his father on self-sufficiency, rice self-sufficiency. Mukhang hindi rin yun ang ano niya because he's already agreed on
yung importation
rice tarification. So it recognizes also that it's so expensive to grow rice, and maybe a different sort of products, agricultural products can help. Although we need rice, that's why we try to lower the cost of rice. But yung tingin lang, Tito Sen, is like, if you were the agricultural secretary, how would you address this whole idea of the problem on food, the problem on rice? Kasi ang rice is a diba ang tawag natin, rice is a political commodity. Kung mahal yan, magrarally ang mga tao.
You'll have to forgive me, but I have a very radical
Go ahead.
perspective as far as agriculture is concerned. I think we should buy all the output of the farmers. At the very least, 40%. 40% of the output of the farmers. So ano ibig sabihin nito? Bottom line, funding. Again, it's money again.
You
know?
did that
Because if you help the farmers, how do you help him? Buy all of his products.
At a
from
higher
his-
farm gate
at his-
price.
At his
Mas
rate.
At the rate, yeah.
You know, at his rate. Not through the traders.
So wala ka ng middleman.
Wala.
So that any additional income based on market prices goes to the farmers.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you do that, then they will have more.
So
More industrialization will easily come in because of agricultural modernization. The farmers, pag yumaman na magsasaka, hindi mahihirapan eh.
Pero Tito
Kung
Sen,
may
ang
pera.
limitation nyo lang bali yung budget. We don't have enough budget to execute that buying all the rice of the farmers. Yan yung ba yung limitation? When you were the Senate President, you had so much influence on lawmaking and talking to the
We
president.
were expecting that that would have been the priority of all the presidents that that we've been serving. We always say that. We always do that. But when the agriculture department handles it, I don't know. In the past, they have been so, what do you call this? Hindi naman siguro hell-bent ang word, pero they have been very favored, or they have been favoring importation.
Right.
When it should be the last resort. Yun eh.
But here's my question. So, with the Philippines being one of the most disaster risk prone, actually we've already ranked first in the world, and now with climate change issues, I think some of the things that I still haven't seen in our administration, even in the third SONA, is how to address that vulnerability of the farmers when it comes to, their crops and their ability to sustain the ability to sustain what they or plant, because by the time, sometimes before they harvest, it all goes away and there's not enough insurance for them. So that goes into even saying that before we can buy what they produce, how do we ensure that they produce something come harvest season?
Well, I think subsidy is the answer. We should subsidize them. We are one of the very few countries in the world that does not subsidize its farmers. In the United States, in Europe, in this part of the world, Asia, they really subsidize and help their farmers because it's the bloodline. And let's face it, in the Philippines, about 60%, 65% of the people rely on agriculture.
Well,
So, subsidy.
Subsidy.
You want to prioritize agriculture? Well, I think he mentioned it. No? The president mentioned it. The
Right.
president has mentioned what they have been doing this year. Let's hope that it materializes for the following year.
Former President Marcos, during his time, didn't have the CARP law or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law in place during his time. So there were opportunities for economies of scale. Do you think it's something that the current president should consider in terms of having really an effective land reform program where farmers can be more effective in earning an income if we are able to perhaps radically change or overhaul the CARP law? Or do you think this is too unpopular?
No,
Tito
at the
Sen?
very least, I think it should be reviewed. It should be reviewed. There should be massive public hearings nationwide, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, and see how it could be effective. And dami, in many areas that are complaining about it.
Well, Edwin, do you have any
Yeah.
other questions? Because
No.
I was going to ask Tito Sen, what would be your key takeaways from this third SONA, and what are your expectations this coming year based on the third SONA of the President?
Well, the priorities that were mentioned by the President, I hope will find its way into the LEDAC. And I hope that the Congress deals with it judiciously,
Right.
especially when it comes to the budget. So with that, I think it's pretty much covered most of what the people expect, or some of us expect.
Thank you, former Senate President Tito Soto.
My pleasure,
Your
ma'am.
insights
Thank you
were
very
really
much.
valuable.
Bilyonaryo.com or Bilyonaryo News Channel is a brother of ours because of Signal in TV.
Yes, that's true.
So,
So
it's,
we're very happy, and we hope to see you more here at Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Sure, my pleasure. My honor and pleasure.
Before
to be
he
here.
runs for
Thank
public
you, Attorney
office.
Karen.
Yes, oh, no,
Secretary
even as
Hacienda,
senator,
thank
of
you.
course.
Thank you
yes.
very much to everyone.
Thank you. And that concludes our SONA coverage. Thank you, Edwin, for co-anchoring the SONA 2024 and the Bilyonaryo News Channel special coverage.
And thank you also, Karen, for Bilyonaryo to invite me as a co-anchor. Thank you, Tito Sen, for your wisdom.
Thank you for watching. Bilyonaryo News Channel is available on Free TV Channel 31 and Signal TV Channel 24. You can also visit our website, bnc.ph. Bilyonaryo News Channel, always on top.